Surrounded by Idiots, Thomas Erikson. Introduction. The man who was surrounded by idiots. I was still in high school when the realization first struck me. I simply connected with some people better than others. It wasn't a matter of effort. With certain friends, the conversation flowed effortlessly, devoid of conflict. And we understood each other implicitly. Yet with others, everything seemed to go wrong. My words fell flat, or worse, were completely misunderstood, and I couldn't fathom why. Why was communication so seamless with some, and an uphill battle with others? Being young, this mystery didn't keep me up at night, but it certainly puzzled me. I recall experimenting, saying the exact same phrase in similar situations to different people to gauge the reaction. The results were baffling. Sometimes it sparked an engaging discussion. Other times, I was met with blank stares as if I were speaking an alien tongue. In the arrogance of youth, I categorized the world simply. Those who understood me were the good guys, and those who didn't obviously had something wrong with them. I was the constant variable, after all, so the fault must lie with those weird, difficult people. I eventually chose the path of least resistance and simply avoided those I didn't understand. Years later, however, a single encounter shattered these assumptions. I was 25, tasked with interviewing a successful entrepreneur named Stura. He was a man in his 60s who had built his own business from the ground up. As we began discussing the operations of his organization, Stura made a comment that I initially took as a joke. He told me with genuine frustration that he was surrounded by idiots. His face reddened as he elaborated. The employees in Department A, complete idiots. Department B, fools who understood nothing. And Department C, they were the absolute worst. He couldn't understand how they even managed to dress themselves in the morning. The more he spoke, the more bizarre the situation appeared. When I asked if he truly believed he was surrounded by idiots, he glared at me. He had no qualms about expressing these feelings to his staff, often berating them publicly. The result was a culture of fear. Employees avoided him, and no one dared deliver bad news. He was so feared that a warning light was installed at the reception, red when he was in, green when he was out, so people could prepare themselves or turn back at the door. In my youthful naivety, I asked the only question that came to mind: who hired all these idiots? The silence was palpable. Stura knew he had hired them. My implication, that perhaps the one doing the hiring was the issue, did not sit well. He threw me out, and I later learned he had considered fetching a shotgun. But the incident stayed with me. Here was a man, highly respected for his business acumen, who was completely illiterate when it came to human behavior. To him, anyone who didn't think or act exactly as he did was an idiot. I saw a terrifying reflection of my own tendencies in Stura. He used words like arrogant windbags and rude bastards for people I also found difficult. I realized that if I didn't change my perspective, I risked going through life believing I was surrounded by impossible people, severely limiting my own potential. I didn't want to be like Stura. That disastrous meeting became a catalyst. I resolved to master the most critical skill of all: understanding how people function. I wanted to know why some are silent while others never stop talking, why some are obsessively punctual while others are perpetually late. The journey of discovery that followed changed everything for me. As a colleague, a friend, and a family man, the insights I gained are based on the DISA system: dominance, inducement, submission, and analytic ability, also known as DISC. This method categorizes human behavior into 4 primary types, each associated with a color: red, yellow, green, and blue. It is a tool I've used for over 2 decades with remarkable results. However, understanding the theory is only the first step. True competence comes from application. You have to get on the bike to learn how to ride it. Since embarking on this study of human behavior, my patience with those different from me has grown exponentially. I no longer judge people simply because they are not like me. Conflicts still happen, but they are rare. I owe a debt of gratitude to Stura. Without his extreme example, my interest might never have been sparked. This book is your guide to that same journey. By understanding the 4 types, you can navigate the complexities of communication and avoid the trap of thinking you are the only sane person in the room. Instead of idiots, you will see individuals worthy of respect and understanding. But be warned, if you fail to apply these principles, you may well continue to feel that you are, indeed, surrounded by idiots. Chapter 1. Communication happens on the listener's terms. It is a fundamental truth of human interaction that everything you say is filtered through the listener's own unique lens. Whatever message you intend to convey is inevitably colored by the other person's background, their biases, their current emotional state, and their preconceived notions about the world. Ultimately, the only message that truly matters is the one that remains in the listener's mind after this filtration process is complete. It is entirely possible, and indeed quite common, for someone to interpret your words in a manner diametrically opposed to your actual intent. While the degree of distortion varies depending on the individual, it is a rare occurrence for a message to be received exactly as it was conceived in your own thoughts. This realization can feel disheartening. It implies a certain lack of control over the communication process, a reality where no amount of logic or force can guarantee that your meaning will penetrate the other person's defenses. You simply cannot alter how another human being functions or processes information. However, there is a powerful alternative to frustration. Most people are acutely aware of how they prefer to be treated and addressed. By observing these preferences and adapting your own mode of expression to align with them, you can dramatically increase the efficacy of your communication. Why is this so important? The significance of adaptation lies in the creation of a safe space for dialogue. When you adjust your approach to suit the listener's needs, you remove the barriers that typically hinder understanding. The listener is then free to focus their energy on the substance of your message rather than reacting, consciously or subconsciously, to a delivery style that they find abrasive or confusing. Developing this flexibility, the ability to shift between different communication styles, is essential for anyone wishing to navigate a world filled with diverse personalities. There is a mathematical reality to consider as well. Regardless of your own behavioral profile, you will always be in the minority. The vast majority of people you encounter will function differently than you do. Relying solely on your own natural preferences for communication is therefore a strategy destined for failure in most interactions. The mark of a skilled communicator is the ability to step outside one's own comfort zone and interpret the needs of others. When you understand the behavioral style of the person standing across from you, you can make educated predictions about their reactions and tailor your message to ensure it is not just heard, but truly understood. No system is perfect. It is important to acknowledge that the complexities of human interaction cannot be fully captured by any single book or theoretical framework. We are constantly transmitting thousands of signals through tone, microexpressions, and body language that defy simple categorization. Even if one were to account for gender differences, cultural nuances, and generational gaps, the picture would remain incomplete. Human beings are not static data points in a spreadsheet. We are fluid, intricate, and often contradictory, despite the fact that millions of assessments have been conducted using the system described in these pages. Human behavior remains a puzzle with infinite variations. We are too complex to be entirely defined by a color or a category. Yet, while no system can claim absolute perfection, understanding the fundamental principles of behavior provides a robust navigational tool. It allows us to avoid the most catastrophic misunderstandings and provides a roadmap for connecting with those who might otherwise remain utter mysteries to us. It's been going on for a while. The pursuit of understanding why we do what we do is as old as humanity itself. We are often blind to the underlying causes of our actions, judging one another based on visible behaviors while remaining ignorant of the internal drivers. These behavioral patterns, the collection of attitudes, values, and approaches that dictate our actions, create the dynamism of our social world. We inevitably recognize elements of ourselves in certain patterns while finding others completely alien. It is crucial to accept that there is no objectively correct or incorrect behavior. There are only differences. You are not broken because you are wired a certain way, and neither is the person who drives you mad. In a solitary existence, you could behave exactly as you please without consequence. If you were alone in a room, you could scream, sit in silence, or analyze the universe without disturbing a soul. Similarly, if everyone around you were a carbon copy of yourself, the golden rule, treating others as you wish to be treated, would function flawlessly. However, we do not live in isolation, nor do we live in a world of clones. The reality is that most people do not think, feel, or act the way you do. To navigate this reality, one must move beyond the simplicity of "my way is the right way." Words carry immense power, but that power is contingent on how they are received. Using the wrong key for a specific lock does not open the door. It merely jams the mechanism. If you insist on using your own language with someone who speaks a different dialect of behavior, you may find that you are the one who appears to be the problem, surrounded by idiots, or not. One might view behavioral patterns as a toolbox. Each tool has its specific purpose and utility. A sledgehammer is an instrument of destruction and force, perfect for demolition, but disastrous for hanging a delicate painting. To criticize the sledgehammer for its lack of finesse is to misunderstand its nature. Similarly, judging a person for possessing traits that differ from your own is a failure of perspective. Some may recoil at the notion of categorizing human beings, fearing it reduces individuals to mere stereotypes. Yet we all categorize one another instinctively. We notice differences. We label behaviors. The danger lies not in the categorization itself, but in how it is used. When employed with empathy and insight, understanding these differences becomes a positive force. It transforms judgment into acceptance. This framework is not a weapon to be used against others, but a lens through which to view the rich tapestry of human variety. The ultimate responsibility lies with you, to use these tools to build bridges rather than walls. No matter how strange it might seem, in theory, every kind of behavior is normal. Behavior that appears erratic or confusing is often, upon closer inspection, entirely normal within the context of a specific personality type. While we cannot predict every single reaction a person will have, we can identify consistent patterns. These patterns render behavior predictable to a degree, allowing us to respect the wiring of others while gaining insight into our own. It is also vital to remember that behavior is not fixed in stone. We are capable of adaptation. We can learn to listen more deeply, to speak more clearly, and to reflect on our actions. This adaptability allows us to meet the needs of the moment. Furthermore, while we can observe and categorize general tendencies, every individual remains unique. We share common traits, yet we express them in our own distinct ways. Understanding this allows us to move from judgment to curiosity. Instead of condemning actions we find baffling, we can seek to understand the why behind them. We can learn to look past the surface irritations and see the valid motivations driving the person across from us. In doing so, we cultivate patience and tolerance, both for the idiosyncrasies of others and for our own imperfections. Chapter 2. Why are we the way we are? The question of where our behavior originates is one that has puzzled humanity for centuries. Why do we act the way we do? Why are people so fundamentally different from one another? The answer, in brief, lies in a complex interplay between heredity and environment. Before we even take our first breath, the foundation for our future behavior has already been laid. We inherit temperament and character traits not only from our parents, but also from their parents and other relatives, creating a genetic tapestry that influences who we become. While the exact mechanisms are still debated by scientists, the influence of heredity is undeniable. We often hear that a child has their uncle's laugh or their grandmother's eyes. Similarly, behavioral tendencies are passed down through generations. When a child is born, they are typically impulsive, adventurous, and completely lacking in barriers. A child acts on pure desire, stating clearly what they want or do not want, often believing they are capable of anything. This spontaneous, unbridled behavior is the raw material of personality. However, as the child grows, this original pattern begins to transform. Through a process that can be seen as either a blessing or a curse, the child begins to copy the behaviors of those around them, slowly molding their unique nature into a reflection of their environment. How are children influenced? The development of a child is a multifaceted process, but imitation stands out as the most primary method of learning. A child observes the world with intense curiosity, mimicking what they see. Often, the parent of the same sex becomes the primary model for this imitation. While this is not a comprehensive study of child psychology, it is crucial to recognize that our early environment plays a pivotal role in shaping the behaviors we exhibit as adults. We are, in many ways, mirrors of the influences that surrounded us in our formative years. Core values. Deep within each of us lie our core values. These are the principles so firmly embedded in our character that changing them is a near impossible task. These values are often instilled in us during our earliest years by our parents or through our first experiences in school. They are the simple yet profound lessons. Study hard. Fighting is wrong. Or all people are equal. These values act as a moral compass, guiding our instinctive understanding of right and wrong. For instance, if you were taught that all individuals have equal worth, regardless of origin, gender, or color, this belief becomes a fundamental part of who you are. It is not merely an opinion, it is a core component of your identity that no one can take away. These values reside in the deepest layers of our subconscious, silently directing our judgments and actions, attitudes and approaches. Layered above our core values are our attitudes. These are distinct from core values in that they are opinions formed through our own experiences later in life, during high school, college, or our early careers. While core values are inherited or instilled early on, attitudes are learned conclusions drawn from our encounters with the world. Consider the example of a person who holds a deep mistrust of salespeople. This attitude might manifest in behavior that seems irrational to others, such as meticulously examining every purchase or returning items constantly. Upon closer inspection, you might find this person believes that a vast majority of salespeople are dishonest. This belief is not a core value, but an attitude formed perhaps after being deceived in the past. The critical distinction here is that attitudes can change. If this person were to have a series of positive, honest interactions with salespeople, their attitude could shift, whereas a core value is far more resistant to such change. The results. Our behavior is the visible result of the interplay between our core values and our attitudes. Together, they form what we call core behavior, the person we truly are when we are completely free from external pressure. This is how we would act if we had no one to please and no social norms to follow. However, true freedom from external influence is a rare state, arguably achieved only when we are asleep. In our waking lives, we are constantly influenced by the people and situations around us. While some individuals may care little about how they are perceived and thus act consistently, regardless of the setting, most of us adapt. The higher your level of self-awareness, the more effectively you can adapt your behavior to suit the needs of the situation and the people you are interacting with. How do others really perceive me? What the world sees is often not our core behavior, but our moderated behavior. This is the version of ourselves that we present after interpreting a specific situation and deciding how best to act within it. It is, in essence, a mask we wear to fit in. We all possess a collection of these masks, one for the workplace, one for our families, perhaps another for meeting the in-laws. This is not to say we are being deceptive. Rather, we are interpreting our environment and adjusting our actions accordingly. Whether consciously or subconsciously, surrounding factors dictate our choices. We can express this dynamic with a simple formula. Behavior is a function of personality multiplied by surrounding factors. 話呢份詞腦在佢所對 FGA-CPXSF. Behavior is what is observable. Personality is the internal mystery we try to decipher. Surrounding factors are the external elements we can influence. The conclusion is inescapable. We are in a constant state of influencing one another. The challenge and the goal of this book is to look beneath the surface behavior to understand the personality driving it. By doing so, we move beyond simple observation to true understanding. By Chapter 3, An Introduction to the System. At the very end of this book, you will find a historical account of how this system came to be, tracing its roots back through the centuries. But since you are likely eager to understand how this actually works in practice, how to navigate the complex web of human behavior, we shall dispense with the history lesson for now and dive straight into the mechanics of the method. To understand the system, one must first visualize a framework of human behavior divided along two primary axes. Imagine a cross. The vertical axis separates those who are task-oriented and issue-oriented from those who are relation-oriented. The horizontal axis divides the world into two other distinct groups, those who are introvert, passive and reserved, versus those who are extrovert, active and proactive implementers. From this intersection, four primary quadrants emerge, each representing a distinct type of behavior associated with a specific color. In the upper left quadrant, we find the blue behavior. These individuals are analytical, prone to a slower reaction time, and exert maximum effort to organize. Their interest in relationships is minimal. They are cautious in their actions and prefer to avoid involvement. Their focus is often on the historical time frame, what has happened and why. In the upper right quadrant resides the red behavior. Like the blue, they are task-oriented, but they differ fundamentally in their energy. They are dominant, quick to react, and exert maximum effort to control. They, too, have minimal interest in caution within relationships, but their focus is firmly on the present moment. They act directly and forcefully. In the lower right quadrant, we find the yellow behavior. These are the inspiring individuals. Their reactions are rapid, much like the reds, but their focus is entirely different. They exert maximum effort to involve others. Their interest in routine is minimal. They reject isolation and thrive in the future time frame. Their actions are impulsive, driven by a desire for connection and interaction. Finally, in the lower left quadrant lies the green behavior. These are the stable individuals. Their reactions are calm, and they exert maximum effort for connection. They have a minimal interest in change and tend to reject conflict. Like the reds, they focus on the current time frame, but their actions are supportive rather than directive. This book is dedicated to helping you recognize these four categories. Very soon, as you delve into the descriptions of each color, specific faces and names from your own life will inevitably drift into your mind. You will see your colleagues, your family members, and perhaps if you are honest, you will even catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror. It is important to note that very few people are comprised of a single color. Approximately 80% of all people possess a combination of two colors that dominate their behavior. A smaller group, roughly 5%, are dominated by a single color. The remainder display a mixture of three. In the pages that follow, we will focus on the single colors individually. This is necessary for clarity. One must understand the individual ingredients before attempting to bake the cake. Of the four, green behavior, either entirely green or green in combination with another color, is the most common. The rarest profile is the purely red behavior, or red in combination with one other color. As you journey through this system, you will likely find yourself feeling a twinge of envy. Many people you meet possess qualities you wish you had. You see the red's decisiveness and wish you could make choices so effortlessly. You watch the yellow interacting with strangers at a party and wish you had that natural ease. Perhaps you envy the green's ability to remain calm and stress-free, or the blue's uncanny knack for keeping their schedule in perfect order. Naturally, the sword cuts both ways. You will also read things that make you realize your own pitfalls. You may recognize that you, like the red, tend to boss others around too much, or that you, like the yellow, speak far more than you listen. It might dawn on you that you are too passive, letting life pass you by like a green, or that you are overly suspicious and see doom around every corner, just like a blue. The purpose of this system is not just to categorize, but to illuminate. Here, you can learn to see your own weaknesses and, more importantly, how to navigate around them. Regardless of what you discover about yourself and those around you, engage with the material. Take notes, underline the passages that resonate. This is the first step toward understanding the idiots who surround you. Chapter 4. Red Behavior. How to recognize a real alpha and avoid getting in his way. If you have ever found yourself in a situation where the question, "What should we do?" is immediately met with the answer, "We'll do it my way and we'll do it now," then you have likely encountered red behavior. Hippocrates, in his ancient theory of temperaments, referred to this type as choleric. In modern terms, we use words like bold, ambitious, driven, and perhaps occasionally hot-tempered or dominant. Identifying a red individual is rarely a difficult task. They seldom make an effort to conceal their true nature. These are the dynamic, driven figures of the world, individuals who possess goals that others might find difficult to even conceive. While many might view such lofty ambitions as impossible, the red strives forward, pushing themselves relentlessly. Giving up is simply not in their vocabulary. Their belief in their own capability is absolute. They carry a conviction that with enough hard work, any obstacle can be overcome. Individuals with a high degree of red behavior are task-oriented extroverts who thrive on challenges. They are the ones who make quick decisions, comfortable in the lead, and unafraid of risk. It is a common perception that Reds are natural leaders, people who willingly take command and march to the front. Their drive is so potent that they often bulldoze through obstacles that would halt others in their tracks. This disposition makes them ideally suited for competitive environments, which explains why it is not uncommon to find CEOs and presidents with a significant amount of red in their behavioral profile. Competition is the fuel that powers the red engine. To say they constantly seek to challenge and compete might be a slight exaggeration, but if there is a chance to win something, they are almost certainly in. The nature of the competition is secondary. It is the competitive element itself that keeps them firing on all cylinders. I recall a neighbor, Pell, whose love for competition was so intense he would develop entirely new interests solely for the purpose of winning. I enjoy gardening and spend considerable time on it. Pell had no interest in gardening, but after hearing enough compliments about my garden, he had had enough. He launched one project after another with a singular, crystal-clear objective: to outdo me. He baffled his wife by digging new flower beds, planting a spectrum of exotic flora, and manicuring his lawn to the standard of a professional golf course. All I had to do to spur him on was mention I might buy a few more plants. He would be at the garden centre faster than you could blink. You can recognise Reds by other distinct patterns. Who speaks the loudest? The Red. Who explains things with the most force and vigour? The Red. Who is the first to answer a question? The Red. Who, during a polite dinner conversation, will make categorical statements on any given topic? And who will judge an entire nation based on a single television report? You guessed it. The Red. For these individuals, life is a state of perpetual motion. Sitting still is a challenge. Idle time is wasted time. Life is short, so one better get moving immediately. Tell me what you really think. Yes. For real. Reds possess a refreshing, if sometimes bracing, bluntness. When asked a question, they will often tell you exactly what they think, devoid of any decorative frills. They see absolutely no need to wrap their message in empty phrases or polite evasions. When a thought enters their mind, it is broadcast to the world almost instantly. They have opinions on most subjects and deliver them with efficiency and speed. It is often remarked that Reds are incredibly honest because they dare to speak their personal truths plainly. They genuinely do not understand the fuss people make about diplomacy. In their eyes, they are simply stating the facts as they see them. If you require energy and momentum, inviting a Red into your project group is a wise move. They will fight tirelessly when others have surrendered, provided they are determined to succeed. However, if a task becomes mundane or meaningless, a Red may ignore it entirely. I call this the slog or split phenomenon. If the mission matters, a Red will walk through fire to complete it. If they feel it lacks purpose, they will discard it without a second thought. Can I win something? In that case, I'm in. So, Reds enjoy competing. They savor the slight friction that comes with rivalry and the glorious rush of victory. They even enjoy winning competitions that may only exist in their own minds. It could be overtaking a slow walker on the sidewalk, securing the absolute best parking spot, or dominating a family board game, even if the game is meant to entertain the children and no other adult is actually trying to win. For a red, this is natural. They fundamentally see themselves as winners. I once worked for a company led by a red CEO. He was efficient, energetic, and undeniably dynamic. His meetings were models of brevity and effectiveness. However, his competitive streak was his Achilles heel. He had played soccer in his youth, and every spring the company held a casual tournament. Naturally, he insisted on participating. The problem was that the moment he stepped onto the field, he transformed. Fueled by competitive fire, he would flatten anyone who stood between him and the goal. This went on for years until someone finally gathered the courage to tell him he was playing too roughly for a friendly game. The CEO was baffled. He pointed to the flyer, noting it was called a tournament. Tournaments are competitions, and in a competition, you play to win. Simple as that. He competed in traffic, in business, on the soccer field. No arena was too insignificant. He even raced against the clock while reading books. 100 pages an hour was his target. His wife eventually banned him from playing memory games with their young children because when he lost, his frustration would intimidate them. Before you judge him as unsympathetic, consider his intentions. This intense behavior often upsets others who perceive it as an attempt to dominate or suppress. But usually, the intention is not malicious. He simply wanted to win. Time is money. For a red, quick is synonymous with good. If you are in a meeting and notice a participant who has clearly tuned out and is attending to something else, it is likely a red who has lost patience. If you look closely, you will see their mind is already on the next step of the process. Because reds are rapid thinkers, they often mentally move on long before the rest of the room has caught up. Few things annoy a red more than sluggishness. If a discussion drags on, they may interrupt to ask if it is really necessary to prolong the agony. We have discussed this for 20 minutes. Make a decision. It is only a few million in investments. How hard can it be? And often they are right. While others hesitate, weighing every option, the red is prepared to decide simply to keep things moving. With a red on the team, nothing is discussed ad infinitum. Doing something is always better than doing nothing. The advantage is clear. These are people who never waste time on anything stagnant. As soon as a task becomes unclear or drags, a red will ensure momentum is maintained. I once worked with a founder named Björn who was deeply red. Nothing moved fast enough for him. In my second week, he called me while I was stuck in traffic. I answered with the polite, formal greeting I had been taught. He interrupted immediately. "Were you looking for me?" "No," I replied, taking a breath to continue. "Okay," he said, and hung up. The call lasted 8 seconds. Initially, I was worried I had offended him. Later, I learned he simply wanted to know if I needed him. Since I didn't, there was no need to talk. Wasting time on pleasantries was not his style. Yet, Björn accomplished more in a day than most do in a week. He utilized every gap in his schedule. A red detests inactivity. Things must happen. The sky's the limit. Or is it? For a red, a realistic budget is a budget for cowards. If we are not pushing ourselves to the breaking point, we are not trying hard enough. Reds love difficult tasks. Their ambition knows no bounds. The ability to handle crises and challenges is a defining attribute of red behavior. When a red sets goals, they envision the result under the most optimal conditions imaginable. If all parameters align and everyone gives 110%, the results will be phenomenal. Consequently, anything less than that impossible standard is boring. Nothing is impossible. The impossible just takes a little longer. That is a maxim likely coined by a red. Of course, this ambition is selective. If a red dislikes the task, say, sales, they will ignore the budget entirely. Since they prefer to make their own decisions, they cannot easily be coerced into doing what they do not wish to do. But generally, they set higher demands on themselves than any other color. They are prepared to work incredibly hard. This ambition should not be confused with a lust for power. Reds are comfortable in power because they are fearless, but power is rarely an end in itself. It is merely a convenient tool that allows them to make decisions without waiting for others. A red can be surprisingly unassuming because frankly they do not care what others think. They are not here for your sake, they are here for their own. Let me tell you how things really are. A red gives everything they have. When they hold an opinion or want to persuade the group, they pull out all the stops. I once sat in a meeting of consultants during a recession. We were all concerned about the lack of direction. Elizabeth, a woman with strong opinions, suddenly stated in an unequivocal voice that the company was expected to earn over $50 million a week despite the downturn. The room of intelligent, reflective people nodded in agreement. I sat there doing the math. $50 million a week? I didn't have the data to refute it, but it seemed astronomical. Later, I heard on the news that the company was expected to earn between $2 and $2.5 million a week. Elizabeth had taken the figures from the news, but got them wildly wrong. Yet, in the meeting, no one questioned her. Why? Because she sounded so utterly convincing. Her face was determined, her voice steady. That is how Reds function. When they believe something, they present it as the only truth. Elizabeth wasn't lying. She likely believed what she said and wasn't interested in the details. But her absolute confidence meant we all fell for it. As a friend of mine says, there are two ways to do this: my way and the wrong way. Only dead fish go. With the flow Reds are groundbreaking, strong-willed, results-oriented, and decisive. For a Red, doing things like everyone else is never a sufficient reason. And just because something is difficult is no reason to avoid it. Reds are not afraid to make decisions. When everyone else is hesitating, weighing risks, and pondering outcomes, a Red makes the controversial choice. Their determination is unyielding. Once decided, it is full steam ahead. This fearlessness allows them to tackle issues that make others tremble. It is no coincidence that many entrepreneurs are Reds. Starting a business requires a strong mind, someone undaunted by risk and willing to work from dawn to dusk. Consider a problem in your apartment building. The landlord ignores complaints about the heating. The contractor for the roof is negligent. You are blocked by unanswered calls and bureaucratic indifference. Then you remember the guy on the second floor. Isn't he a bit red? Wasn't he the one who argued with the superintendent to get the trash policy changed? You unleash him on the problem. You might have to frame it so he sees what he gains from it. But once engaged, he will make things happen. He will subdue the landlord and align the contractor, and he won't lose a wink of sleep if he angers someone in the process. It wasn't better before. Onward and upward. A Red does not cling to a viewpoint once they realize a better solution exists. They are quick thinkers and have no trouble shifting ground at a moment's notice. One advantage of this is that they do not reject other people's ideas out of pride. If an idea propels development forward, it is worth using. Sometimes their decisions come too quickly, but their will to constantly change creates immense dynamism. If something has been static for too long, say a few weeks, they will turn it up a notch. If you ask a Red why they changed a system that was working, the answer might simply be, because I could. This can be stressful for others. Just as the greens and blues settle into a new routine, the Red has already outlined the next revolution. Conclusions on Red behavior. So, what do you think? Do you know any Reds? Do you have any in your immediate circle? If you are looking for famous examples, consider Steve Jobs, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Venus Williams, or Margaret Thatcher. There is also Barack Obama and Mother Teresa. Yes, Mother Teresa. If you consider the sheer strength required to achieve what she did, dealing with the world's most powerful leaders and refusing to back down from her mission, you realize she was extremely determined and forceful. A typical Red profile. Chapter 5. Yellow Behavior. How to recognize someone whose head is in the clouds and get him back to reality again. That sounds fun. Let me do it. In the ancient classification of temperaments by Hippocrates, we now arrive at the sanguine individual. If we were to paint a portrait of this personality type using modern strokes, we would use vibrant colors denoting optimism, cheerfulness, and a perpetually bright outlook. One might even call this individual a man of possibilities. This description captures the essence of yellow behavior perfectly. These are the souls who live to live, extracting every ounce of enjoyment from the banquet of existence. They are propelled through life by merriment and laughter, operating on the unshakable belief that the sun is always shining somewhere, even if it is currently hidden behind a bank of grey clouds. If you have ever encountered someone who finds a silver lining where others see only impending doom, or who can laugh heartily despite a months-long streak of bad luck, you have met a yellow. Consider the social dynamics of a cocktail party. You may have wondered why a specific person seems to be the gravitational center of the room, with people orbiting around them in fascination. In the middle of that circle stands a yellow, tirelessly entertaining anyone willing to listen. They ensure the atmosphere remains at its zenith, transforming a mundane gathering into a marvelous event, and the moment the fun fades, they simply migrate to where the energy is higher. Identifying a yellow is rarely a challenge. They are the ones who are constantly speaking. They are the individuals who offer answers before questions have even been fully articulated, often answering questions that no one actually asked. A query might be met with a meandering story that has little to do with the original topic, yet it hardly matters because the storyteller is so engaging that you find yourself swept up in their cheerful mood. Their relentlessly positive attitude acts as a barrier against negativity, making it difficult to remain upset in their presence for long. It is not an exaggeration to suggest that yellows are often the most popular members of a group. They possess an innate talent for capturing and holding attention, making those around them feel significant. They are fundamentally touchy-feely people, guided by intuition rather than cold logic. Like their red counterparts, they are quick to make decisions, though they can rarely articulate the rational basis for their choices. "It just felt right" is a common refrain. While gut feelings have their merit, the yellow's decision-making process is often devoid of critical thought, driven purely by the emotion of the moment. I have a sister, Marita, who embodies this disposition. Her manner is so effortless and easygoing that I have never heard a disparaging word spoken against her. She possesses a unique gift for connecting with every soul she encounters. Her conversation is always entertaining, though occasionally so peculiar that one wonders what cognitive process produced it. When asked what she was thinking, her characteristic response is a burst of laughter and the admission, Thinking I wasn't. Visiting her is a lesson in liberation. Her ability to perceive brightness in the mundane is contagious. If I point out that a storm is brewing, noting the dark sky and the pouring rain, she will cheerfully acknowledge it, only to add that the sun will surely come out afterwards. While the rain hammers against the glass, she remains content on the sofa, unabashedly enjoying the moment, and it is impossible not to join in her laughter. The more the merrier. Your friends are my friends. Individuals with a high concentration of yellow behavior are fundamentally focused on the creation and maintenance of relationships. They are outgoing, often extremely persuasive, and brim with enthusiasm. They are more than willing to discuss their feelings, not only for their intimates, but often for complete strangers. To a yellow, a stranger is simply a friend they have not yet had the pleasure of meeting. Shyness is a foreign concept. They perceive the world as a collection of pleasant encounters waiting to happen. This unyielding sociability is often accompanied by a permanent smile. Their optimism is a formidable shield. If you remark that the world is going to hell in a handbasket, a yellow will likely counter by complimenting the view. Like reds, they possess a vast reservoir of energy, which they direct toward curiosity and the discovery of new ways to do things. The status quo is boring. The new is always delightful. If you were to tally who receives the most holiday cards, has the most contacts in their phone, or boasts the longest list of Facebook friends, the yellow would win every time. They have acquaintances in every corner of the globe and excel at keeping these connections alive. They need to know what is happening to be in the center of the action, and they will go to great lengths to ensure they do not miss a single party. Isn't it amazing? I just love it to bits. If a single trait defines yellow behavior, it is boundless enthusiasm. Very few things can dampen their spirits for long. Their entire being is wired to identify opportunities and solutions rather than problems. To the sanguine mind, nothing is truly a problem. It is merely a situation that will sort itself out eventually. The fact that the world is fraught with hardship is a detail they happily overlook. With their incurably positive outlook, they serve as a source of joy for those around them, dispensing cheer and entertaining anecdotes with liberality. This energy is directed towards social cohesion and fun. A yellow will not permit gloom to take root in their presence. Everyone must be involved, and everyone must be happy. I have a friend, Mika, whose life reads like a catalogue of misfortunes. Divorce, employment struggles, burglaries, and an uncanny number of car accidents have plagued him. Yet, curiously, none of this seems to leave a mark. He gets upset when calamity strikes, of course, but the emotion is transient. Inside, he continues to bubble with effervescence. I recall when he purchased an old, rusty Alfa Romeo. It was a miracle of engineering that the vehicle held together at all. Within a week, he had collided with a lamppost, jamming the driver's side door shut. When I called, worried about his safety, his response was typical. "It was fine. I just got out the other door." For a yellow, even a car crash is just a minor deviation in an otherwise sunny existence. The optimistic consultant strikes again. Because yellows are so radiant with positivity, they are effective at demolishing opposition. It is difficult to remain angry or critical when someone is persistently pointing out the good in every situation. How can one be grumpy when faced with a person who refuses to acknowledge that the glass is anything but half full? I have a client, Marianne, a sales director who climbed the corporate ladder through sheer force of personality. Her colleagues agree that her success is attributable to one specific talent, her ability to inspire. I have watched her conduct meetings where, within minutes, the atmosphere is so charged with enthusiasm that if she suggested the team jump out of a fifth-story window, they would likely do it. She makes the impossible sound simple. "It's a great idea to jump. We can do this." Now passen Sie es. By refusing to engage with negative realities, she inflates people's confidence to stratospheric levels. I once witnessed her diffuse an irate customer who felt wronged by her company. It was a situation most would dread. Marianne handled it by smiling steadfastly and refusing to validate his negativity. Through sheer force of warmth, she moved him from anger to a smile, and finally to boisterous laughter. She likely could not explain the mechanics of how she did it. It was simply her natural state of being. What happens if we turn everything upside down? Resourcefulness is a hallmark of yellow behavior. They possess a unique aptitude for seeing solutions where others see only dead ends. They turn problems on their heads, twisting and turning perspectives until a new possibility emerges. Their thinking does not follow conventional patterns. They think outside the box because they are often unaware that a box exists. Their intellect moves at a rapid pace, often making it difficult for others to keep up. Sometimes even they struggle to explain the wild leaps of logic that lead to their ideas. A friend of mine, Robin, has a passion for interior and garden design. His creativity is impulsive and visual. He walks around his garden while his wife counts backward from 10. By the time she reaches 7, he has an idea. This creativity stems from an ability to think in images and a lack of fear regarding failure. They are not afraid to try the new or to vocalize their half-formed thoughts. I worked with a yellow who could generate provocative business ideas simply by crossing the street. For a long time, we tried to force him to write these ideas down, a struggle against his nature that I will discuss later. Yellows are uninhibited by convention or hierarchy. When they are in creative mode, limitations simply vanish. If you are stuck in a rut, seeking a yellow's perspective can be liberating. They may not offer a realistic plan, but they will provide the spark that leads to a breakthrough. Selling snow to a penguin. Coupled with their energy and optimism, yellows are master persuaders. They easily get carried away, seeing potential where others see risk. While there is a distinction between convincing someone through logic and persuading them through emotion, yellows frequently blur this line. They speak with such conviction and allure that they win people over before the listener has had time to process the facts. Their language is often rich and varied, accompanied by expressive body language. They do not just speak with their mouths, they communicate with their entire bodies. They use vivid, colorful imagery that appeals to the senses, creating a visceral impression. Instinctively, they understand that the messenger is as important as the message. They focus on establishing a connection, making the listener feel important and liked. They are the charismatic politicians who shake hands, offer personal compliments, and make you feel as though you are the only person in the room. I know lots of people. All of them, in fact. If a yellow is prevented from cultivating relationships, they wither. The very definition of their behavior revolves around social connection. They inspire others, and the vehicle for this inspiration is the relationship. In business, they understand that people buy from people they like. If the customer does not feel a positive connection, the sale is lost. Yellows know everyone. Their network of acquaintances is vast. dwarfing that of other personality types. They consider anyone who does not actively dislike them to be a friend. While a red asks what is to be done, a yellow asks who is doing it. This is the crucial question. If the group dynamic is flawed, the yellow will not function. They require smooth, positive relationships to truly come into their own. Conclusions on yellow behavior. Have you identified the yellows in your life? They are the ones bringing laughter and chaos in equal measure. If you look to the world of fame and fiction, you find them in figures like Oprah Winfrey, Robin Williams, and Ellen DeGeneres. In storytelling, characters like Pippin from The Lord of the Rings and Han Solo from Star Wars capture that essential yellow spirit, charming, spontaneous, and always ready for the next adventure. Chapter 6. Green Behavior. Why change is so difficult and how to get around it. How are we going to do this? It's not urgent, right? We have now arrived at the most common of all behavioral profiles, the green. You will encounter this type virtually everywhere you go. If one were to describe them in the simplest terms, they could be seen as the balanced average of all the other colors. This is not to imply they are average in a negative sense. Rather, they serve as the necessary equilibrium in a world of extremes. While the red is busy stressing over performance, the yellow is spinning creative webs in the clouds, and the blue is obsessing over the minutiae of an Excel spreadsheet. The green keeps the world grounded. Hippocrates referred to this temperament as phlegmatic, while the Aztecs called them earth people. Words like calm, leisurely, and easygoing fit them perfectly. It is a simple fact of nature that not everyone can be a high-powered leader or an exuberant entertainer. If everyone were shouting commands, there would be no one left to listen. If everyone were a detail-obsessed perfectionist, progress would grind to a halt. Greens provide a stabilizing force. They do not seek the spotlight, nor do they rush into conflict. Where a red might charge into a situation at full speed, a green approaches with a calm, steady rhythm. They strive for harmony and stability. If you have a green friend, you know they are the ones who never forget your birthday. They will not envy your success or try to steal your thunder with a louder story. They are not competitive in the way reds are, nor do they crave attention like yellows. They will not demand that you change, and they will rarely initiate a conflict. In fact, they are often defined by what they do not do. They do not make a fuss. They do not offend, they do not demand. Because of this passivity, greens are incredibly easy to deal with. They let you be yourself. They are the ones who smooth over the jagged edges of social interaction. They are tolerant of the eccentricities of others. I know a family where the husband is a boisterous yellow, constantly performing and seeking attention, while his green wife sits quietly, smiling at his antics. She doesn't find him exhausting, she simply enjoys his joy. This tolerance is a hallmark of the green personality. They are the calm in the storm, the people who allow the rest of us to be our chaotic selves. Some simple basics. At their core, greens are kindness personified. If you need a helping hand, a green is the first to offer it. They are deeply relational people who will go to great lengths to maintain a friendship. They are the keepers of social glue, remembering anniversaries, children's birthdays, and the small details that make people feel seen. It is often said that greens are the best listeners, and this reputation is well earned. A green is genuinely more interested in your life than in talking about their own. They are content to let you shine. They are the ultimate team players. For a green, the group always comes before the individual. Whether it is their family, their work team, or their circle of friends, they prioritize the collective well-being. They are the ones who visit the sick, help the weak, and ensure no one is left behind. You can call a green friend in the middle of the night and they will answer. They offer a shoulder to cry on and a safe harbor in times of distress. However, this love for stability comes with a price, a resistance to change. Greens are not innovators by nature. They find comfort in the known and anxiety in the unknown. If you want a green to accept a new way of doing things, you must give them time and a very good reason. They live by the motto that the grass is rarely greener on the other side. They know what they have and they are quite content to keep it that way. The best pal in the world. The friendliness of a green is not a facade. It is genuine and deep-seated. They care about how you are doing, truly care. If you are struggling, they will lose sleep over it. In a group setting, if a volunteer is needed and no one steps forward, the green will often raise their hand, not because they want the glory, but because they cannot bear to see someone left in the lurch. They step in to save others from discomfort. I once worked with a colleague named Maya, who was predominantly green. She was the heart of the office. She said yes to every request for help, often to her own detriment. Her desk was a mountain of work because she was busy organizing everyone else's lives. She remembered every birthday, ensured every client felt welcomed, and reminded the rest of us stressed-out consultants to go home to our families. She didn't do this for recognition. She did it because caring for others made her feel good. This helpfulness is instinctive. At a coffee break, while others might get a refill only for themselves, a green will pick up the pot and fill everyone's cup. They want to be on good terms with everyone, even people they might not particularly like. They see the best in others, sometimes to a fault. This trusting nature can make them vulnerable to being taken advantage of, but their generosity of spirit is one of their most beautiful qualities. Once they've said they'll do something, you can rest assured that it will be done. Reliability is a cornerstone of green behavior. If a green promises to handle a task, you can consider it done. They may not do it with the lightning speed of a red, but they will deliver. The driving force behind this reliability is often a fear of letting others down. They dread the idea of being the cause of a problem for the team. Because they prioritize the group over themselves, they are diligent and dependable. They do not seek the limelight, but they work hard in the background to ensure everything runs smoothly. In many ways, they are the ideal employees for roles that require consistency and stability. They take orders well, provided they are asked nicely, and they derive satisfaction from a job well done. Their goal is often simply to please others and maintain a harmonious environment. This selflessness creates a sense of calm that lowers the stress levels of everyone around them. We don't want any unpleasant surprises. It's good to know what's going to happen every time. Predictability is a green's best friend. They thrive on routine and stability. In a workplace, they are the steady core that keeps the wheels turning while others are running around creating chaos. When a crisis hits or a major change is announced, you can see the difference in reactions across the spectrum. The red screams and takes charge. The yellow starts gossiping and speculating. The blue starts analyzing the details of the disaster. But the green keeps their head down and continues working. Unless the change fundamentally threatens their security, a green will try to carry on as if nothing has happened. They prefer to ignore the fuss and stick to what they know. This ability to maintain a routine can be a huge asset. You always know where you stand with a green. They do not change their opinions or their habits on a whim. I recall a CEO who had a management team consisting entirely of greens. He could predict their reactions to any proposal with 100% accuracy. He knew who would say no, who would say yes, and who would be unsure. With a yellow or red, you never know what version of them you will get on a given day. With a green, you get consistency. They find comfort in the familiar, and they provide comfort to others through their dependability. Who? Me? I'm not important. Forget that you even saw me. The philosophy of a green is simple. Team before self. This is a fundamental truth that guides their actions. They will often suppress their own needs and desires if they believe it serves the greater good of the group. They do not think in terms of individual success. They think in terms of collective well-being. If the group is happy, the green is happy. This extreme consideration for others can sometimes make it difficult to get a straight answer from a green. They are so busy trying to figure out what everyone else wants that they struggle to express what they want. They do not want to be a burden or a source of friction. I remember a colleague, Christopher, calling me on a Sunday morning. We chatted for 15 minutes about renovations, boilers, and the weather. He was pleasant, asking questions and offering advice. I was baffled as to why he had called until I finally asked him directly. It turned out he had locked himself out of the office in his t-shirt and was freezing in the snow. He had called me for help, but his green nature made him so reluctant to impose that he spent 15 minutes making polite conversation while shivering in sub-zero temperatures. He didn't want to bother me. For a green, everyone else is more important than they are. I know exactly what you mean. Greens are often introverts, meaning they are active in their inner world. They do not feel the need to fill every silence with words. This makes them exceptional listeners. Unlike a red, who listens only to gain an advantage, or a yellow, who is usually just waiting for their turn to speak, a green actually hears what you are saying. They are genuinely interested in your thoughts and feelings. They have a natural ear for human problems. They may not always offer a solution, they might not want to intrude, but they will offer empathy. They understand. This makes them surprisingly effective in sales roles, a fact that is often overlooked. We teach salespeople to listen more and talk less, a skill that comes naturally to a green. I once coached a green salesperson named Helena. She was gentle and quiet, seemingly ill-suited for the aggressive world of sales, yet she landed a major account with a tough executive simply by listening. They met for lunch, and before they even sat down, the executive started talking about his vintage car. Helena didn't know a thing about cars, but she nodded, smiled, and listened intently. She didn't interrupt. She didn't try to steer the conversation to her product. She just let him talk. By the time they ordered food, he had signed the contract. She won him over not by pitching, but by being a safe, attentive audience. Conclusions on green behavior. Do you recognize the greens in your life? They are likely the ones holding your family together, the steady friends who are always there when you need them. Famous examples often cited include figures known for their calm, supportive nature, such as Mr. Rogers, Gandhi, Michelle Obama, and Jimmy Carter, and, in the ultimate example of a servant leader who put others before himself, Jesus. These are the people who know how to help, how to listen, and how to be a steady presence in a chaotic world. Chapter 7. Blue Behavior in Pursuit of Perfection. Why are we doing this? What's the science behind it? We now turn our attention to the final color in our spectrum, the blue. This is a personality type that you have undoubtedly encountered, though they rarely announce their presence with the fanfare of a red or the exuberance of a yellow. While the green individual is content to float along with the current, the blue is standing on the riverbank, analyzing the flow rate, the water quality, and the structural integrity of the bridge downstream. They are the observers, the evaluators, and the relentless pursuers of correct answers. You can often identify a blue by the state of their personal environment. If you visit a home where every item has a designated place, where the spice rack is alphabetized, and where the family calendar is color-coded and planned weeks in advance, you are likely in the domain of a blue. Their toolkits are not jumbled messes of metal, they are organized shrines to order, where every wrench is returned to its specific slot immediately after use. This behavior stems from a fundamental need for structure and organization. The blue is often characterized as a pessimist, though they would staunchly correct you and claim the title of realist. They possess an uncanny ability to spot errors and calculate risks. They are the melancholic temperament in the ancient system, reserved, analytical, and deeply detail-oriented. They do not seek the spotlight, but they do seek the truth, and they will dig until they find it. Excuse me, but that's not quite accurate. We all know that one person who serves as a walking encyclopedia and fact-checker. Imagine you are at a dinner party and the conversation turns to sports or celebrity trivia. A red might confidently assert a statistic, or a yellow might share a colorful anecdote about a famous actor. Then, a quiet voice interjects from the end of the table. With gentle precision, the blue informs the group that the red statistic is off by 2 years. And the yellow's story is geographically impossible because the actor actually grew up in a different neighborhood. They do not offer this correction to be rude or to humiliate anyone. They do it simply because the information was wrong, and for a blue, accuracy is paramount. They will likely follow up with additional data citing the specific source of their knowledge. If you challenge them, be prepared for them to produce the book or the website that proves their point. They know what they know, and they usually know it because they have done the research. It is important to note, however, that a blue rarely volunteers this information unless the subject is raised. They do not feel a compulsive need to broadcast their intelligence, but if facts are being discussed, they must be correct. To a blue, a fact is binary. It is either true or it is false. There is no gray area. It's not a big deal. I was just doing my job. Paradoxically, despite their vast knowledge, blues are often incredibly modest. They do not require applause or public accolades. In fact, they often find such displays embarrassing or unnecessary. If a blue solves a complex problem that has stumped the rest of the team, they might not even mention it until asked. I recall a situation where a group of us struggled with a dilemma for hours. Finally, a blue colleague stepped forward and calmly provided the solution. When asked why he hadn't spoken up 2 hours earlier, his response was simple. You didn't ask. He wasn't being difficult. He simply didn't see the need to intrude. He knew the answer, and that internal knowledge was satisfaction enough. If you praise a blue for a job well done, do not expect to jump for joy. They will likely nod, accept the acknowledgement, and return to their work. In their mind, they have simply done what was expected of them. Excellence is the baseline, not an occasion for a party. Excuse me, but where did you read that, and what edition was it? For a blue, there is no such thing as too much information. While a red wants the executive summary and a yellow wants the highlights, a blue wants the raw data, the footnotes, and the appendices. They live by the motto that the devil is in the details. To suggest cutting corners or skipping the fine print is to invite their scorn. Why do something if you aren't going to do it thoroughly? I once attempted to sell a leadership training program to a CEO who was a quintessential blue. Our first meeting was scheduled for exactly 50 minutes. Not an hour, but 50 minutes, calculated precisely to allow him transit time to his lunch engagement. The meeting was formal, devoid of small talk, and focused entirely on the business at hand. When he asked for a proposal, I initially provided my standard 10-page document. It wasn't enough. He wanted more detail. I returned with 35 pages. He read it and asked, "Is there any more material?" I expanded it to 80 pages, including every minute detail of the schedule. Still, he asked for more. Finally, I handed over the entire training manual, hundreds of pages covering every single exercise and theory. He didn't make a decision immediately. He wasn't stalling because he was indecisive. He was stalling because he was enjoying the process of analysis. For a blue, the gathering and processing of information is often more rewarding than the final decision itself. They need to know that every angle has been considered and every potential error checked. Why some people have to sleep on things for so long? You wonder if they've gone into hibernation. This obsession with detail leads to a natural caution. Blues operate on a safety-first principle. Where others might leap into a new venture based on a hunch or a burst of enthusiasm, a blue will stand on the edge and calculate the trajectory, the wind speed, and the depth of the water. This caution means that blues are rarely the ones to take big risks. They value predictability and security. They are the ones who arrive at the airport 3 hours early, just in case. They double-check that the stove is off and the door is locked. While this risk aversion can sometimes lead to missed opportunities, it also prevents disasters. A blue will rarely be caught unprepared. They have a plan A, a plan B, and usually a contingency plan for the apocalypse. It doesn't matter if it's easier. It's still not right. Quality is the holy grail of the blue personality. If a task is worth doing, it is worth doing perfectly. They cannot abide shoddy workmanship. If they spot a flaw, they cannot simply ignore it or patch it up. They must understand the root cause. Consider the 5 whys technique used by Toyota engineers. If there is an oil stain on the floor, a red might yell at someone to clean it up. A blue will ask, "Why is there oil?" When told a gasket leaked, they ask, "Why did it leak?" Because the gasket was cheap. Why did we buy cheap gaskets? And so on, until they discover that a purchasing policy needs to be changed. They solve the problem at its source. This drive for perfection makes them scrupulously honest, sometimes to a fault. I remember my father, a blue engineer, selling our family home. During showings, he would systematically point out every flaw to potential buyers, the leaky tap, the peeling paint behind the sofa. My mother was horrified, but my father couldn't help himself. To hide the truth would be inaccurate, and inaccuracy is a violation of his core code. If the trail doesn't match the map, there's something wrong with the trail. Logic governs the blue world. They strive to remove emotion from the equation, relying instead on rational thought and empirical evidence. They trust systems, manuals, and established procedures. If a method works, they see no reason to change it. Watch a blue assemble a piece of IKEA furniture, while a red throws away the instructions and a yellow guesses which screw goes where. The blue will lay out every piece. They will count the screws to ensure the number matches the inventory list. They will read the instructions from start to finish before picking up a tool. It may take them longer to get started, but when they are finished, that bookshelf will be sturdy, level, and built exactly as the designer intended. They find comfort in the rules, because rules provide a predictable framework for the world. The devil is in the details. I recall a project where I decided to renovate my patio. My father, the engineer, came to help. We ordered a truckload of gravel. While I stood ready with a shovel, eager to start moving dirt, my father stood staring at the pile. He walked around it, measured it with his eyes, and muttered calculations. He determined the exact volume of the pile, and then proceeded to lecture me on the precise incline required for proper drainage, 1 centimeter per meter, exactly. To me, roughly was good enough. To him, roughly was a catastrophe waiting to happen. He spent hours measuring, leveling, and checking the grade with a plumb line. He refused to lay a single stone until the foundation was mathematically perfect. He consulted the manual for every step. Arguments were futile because you cannot argue with the instruction book. In the end, the patio was a masterpiece of engineering that will likely outlast the house itself. That is the blue way. Do it once, do it right, and never worry about it again. Silence is golden. Blues are predominantly introverts. They live in an internal world of thoughts and analysis. This often makes them quiet. They do not feel the need to fill silence with chatter. If they have nothing valuable to add, they will say nothing. This silence should not be mistaken for a lack of opinion. A blue is always observing, always recording. They are the ones on the periphery of the group, watching the dynamics, noting the contradictions, and filing away information for later use. When they do speak, it is usually worth listening because they have thought through their words carefully. They value silence. It is the space where thinking happens. Conclusions on blue behavior. Do you recognize the blues in your life? They are the organizers, the analysts, the quality controllers. They are the ones who ensure that the grand visions of the reds and yellows actually function in reality. Famous blues include detail-oriented minds like Bill Gates and Albert Einstein, as well as disciplined figures like Condoleezza Rice. And in fiction, Mr. Spock from Star Trek stands as the ultimate blue, governed by logic, baffled by emotion, and always correct. Chapter 8. No one is completely perfect. Strengths and weaknesses. As the title of this book suggests, we are often surrounded by individuals whom we find challenging to understand. In favorable circumstances, we might simply find them a bit odd. In less favorable situations, we don't understand them at all. And the most difficult people to interact with are invariably those who are not like us, for they are the ones who obviously behave incorrectly. The differences begin to become clear. By now, the general distinctions between the different colors should be coming into focus. We can see that some people are driven by issues and tasks, while others are driven by relationships. We can see that reds and yellows are quick to act, operating in the present or future, while greens and blues are more reflective, often looking to the past or the status quo. These fundamental differences are the breeding ground for everyday misunderstandings. It is easy to fall into the trap of thinking, I am always right, which naturally implies that the other person is automatically wrong. But as a wise person once noted, just because I am right does not necessarily mean you are wrong. We tend to be hypersensitive to the faults of others. Child psychologists have even argued that the behaviors we find most shocking in our children are often the very traits we recognize in ourselves but wish we didn't possess. So, in this complex web of interaction, who truly has the authority to decide what constitutes right and wrong behavior? Time for a real cliché. Here is a platitude for you. No one is perfect. It is a cliché because it is true. In my youth, I spent considerable time searching for a mentor, a role model who was flawless, a human being completely free of shortcomings. I never found one. We all live with our imperfections and make the best of the hand we are dealt. However, when we label someone an idiot, we must ask ourselves, is it really because of their actual faults, or is it because we have failed to understand them? A quality that is a strength in one context can be a disastrous weakness in another. Moreover, communication happens on the recipient's terms. Regardless of your intentions, people will judge you based on how they perceive you. Good qualities can easily become liabilities if the circumstances are wrong. Quick review of core behavior patterns. Before we delve into how others perceive us, let us quickly recap. Reds are quick to take command and make things happen, but they can become overbearing control freaks who trample on toes. Yellows are creative and uplifting, but if left unchecked, they consume all the oxygen in the room and their stories drift further and further from reality. Greens are friendly and easygoing, but their indecisiveness and lack of a clear stance can drain the energy from a team. Blues are calm and analytical, but their critical nature can easily turn into suspicion and a dampening pessimism. Each color evaluates themselves differently. Reds and yellows, possessing strong egos, tend to inflate their strengths and ignore their weaknesses. Greens and blues often do the reverse, exaggerating their own shortcomings and dismissing positive feedback. In the following sections, we will explore how these behaviors are perceived by others, a perspective that is often radically different from our own. How red people are perceived. If you ask a red about themselves, you will get a glowing report of drive and efficiency. If you ask others about reds, usually when the red is not in the room for fear of an explosion, you get a different story. They are often described as belligerent, arrogant, unyielding, and aggressive. Some might even use words like dictatorial or tyrannical. Why does everything take so long? Can't you speed things up a bit? Reds are notorious rule breakers, not because they are criminals, but because rules slow them down. I once had a colleague, Björn, who drove in the bus lane every single day to get to work. He accrued fines regularly, but he calculated that the time saved was worth the cost. To a red, efficiency trumps regulation. They will take shortcuts if it means getting the job done, often leaving others wondering what just happened. I am not screaming. I'm not angry. Arrgh! Because reds are blunt, they are often perceived as aggressive. In many workplaces, we claim to want open communication. But few can handle the brutal honesty of a red. If you ask a red for their honest opinion, be prepared to have your work torn apart. They aren't trying to be mean. They are simply doing exactly what you asked. They are focusing on the task, not your feelings. And if a conflict arises, they won't back down. In fact, they might enjoy the friction. What are you doing over there? I can see what you're not doing. The red need for control is legendary. They believe they know best, and therefore they should be in charge. This isn't about controlling every detail, they don't have the patience for that, but about controlling the direction and the people. I once worked with a red middle manager who would delegate tasks, but then do them herself before the employee even had a chance to start, simply because she couldn't wait. To others, this feels suffocating and rigid. I try to care about you, but it would help if you were a little more interesting. Reds are task-oriented, not relation-oriented. This can make them seem cold. I recall Björn asking about my daughter's new school during a company dinner. As I began to answer, I saw his eyes glaze over. He had realized everything was fine, so the task of checking in was complete. He didn't need the details. He wasn't being malicious. He just lost interest. To a green or yellow, this feels like a slap in the face. To a red, it's just efficiency. How yellow people are perceived. Yellows see themselves as funny, entertaining, and divinely positive. Ask a blue, however, and you'll hear that yellows are selfish, superficial, and careless. Ask a green, and they might say yellows are overwhelming and bad listeners. Yellows have a selective memory. They simply forget the boring or difficult bits. Hello, anyone there? Listen to what happened to me. You want to know, right? Yellows are gifted communicators. Words flow effortlessly for them, but they often lack an off switch. They can dominate a conversation to the point of exhaustion. I once timed a meeting where a yellow sales manager spoke for 69% of the time, leaving the other 7 attendees to share the remaining 31%. They don't do this to be mean. They simply have a generous approach to their own ideas. If a thought pops into their head, it comes out of their mouth. I know it looks messy, but there's a method to the madness. Yellows are often perceived as careless. They hate structure and routine. They keep everything in their heads, which inevitably leads to forgotten appointments and missed deadlines. They are great at starting projects, but terrible at finishing them. They paint with broad strokes and have zero interest in details. To a blue, this is a nightmare. To a yellow, good enough is perfect. And why worry about a few spelling errors when the concept is so brilliant? Look, I can juggle all the balls at the same time. Yellows are easily distracted. New is always better. If a project drags on, they lose interest and look for the next shiny object. In meetings, they are the ones checking their phones or chatting with a neighbor. This lack of focus can be dangerous for a team as they leave a trail of unfinished business for others to clean up. Me! Because they talk so much and often about their own experiences, yellows can seem incredibly self-centered. If the conversation isn't about them or something they find interesting, they will likely interrupt and steer it back to a topic that excites them. They aren't necessarily more selfish than others, but their communication style makes them appear that way. You never told me that I would remember. If a yellow is anything, they are a bad listener. They might claim otherwise, but their mind is usually racing ahead to what they are going to say next. They don't listen to understand, they listen for a pause so they can speak. This is a major weakness that can lead to serious misunderstandings and frustration for those trying to communicate with them. How green people are perceived. Greens are generally seen as pleasant and caring, but their aversion to conflict creates a different set of problems. To reds and yellows, the greens' silent resistance is maddening. Pig-headedness will never be a virtue. Once a green has made up their mind, or more accurately, once they have adopted the opinion of someone they trust, it is nearly impossible to move them. They are not convinced by facts or logic if it contradicts their feeling or the word of a trusted friend. This stubbornness can block progress and drive more dynamic personalities up the wall. Why bother? Nothing is worth caring about. Because greens are passive and rarely take initiative, they can appear indifferent or lazy. They are happy to wait and see. If a new idea is presented, they might just sit on it, hoping the urge to act will pass. This lack of engagement can kill the enthusiasm of a team. They don't want to get involved because involvement means work and potential conflict. What's thought in secret is said in secret. Greens rarely speak up in large groups. They express themselves in vague, ambiguous terms to avoid taking a stand. It might be difficult is green code for absolutely not. They don't want to be held responsible for a decision. However, this doesn't mean they don't have opinions. They will share them freely behind your back, often complaining and gossiping in small, safe groups. I know I should change this immediately, but I'll just think about it for a while. Change is the green's enemy. The unknown is terrifying. Even a simple change, like where to sit at the lunch table, can cause anxiety. I had a colleague who sulked for an entire afternoon because his usual seat was taken. If you try to force a green to change without giving them ample time to process, they will dig their heels in and do absolutely nothing. I've never been so upset. But for God's sake, don't say anything to anyone. The green's fear of conflict leads to a harmony outlook, where problems are swept under the rug to preserve the peace. They would rather sit at a dinner table with a rotting pile of trash in the center than offend anyone by mentioning the smell. They pretend everything is fine until the situation becomes unbearable. How blue people are perceived. Blues create quality work, but their perfectionism and critical nature can be exhausting. They are often seen as evasive, defensive, slow, suspicious, and cold. 95% right is actually 100% wrong. For a blue, there is no good enough. Everything must be perfect. They will scrutinize every detail, asking endless questions. This relentless pursuit of perfection can paralyze a project. They would rather spend weeks analyzing the root cause of an oil stain than simply wipe it up. They never finish anything. There's always more to do. Because they are so focused on details, blues can have trouble finishing tasks. There is always one more thing to check, one more adjustment to make. I once ran a workshop where a woman denied being a perfectionist, then proceeded to describe how she organizes her children's shoes by size and sanitizes the kitchen for 20 minutes before she can relax. To a blue, this isn't obsession, it's just order. I don't really know you, so keep your distance. Blues have a large personal bubble. They are introverts who do not feel the need for social chit-chat. They can work next to you for years without ever telling you their dog's name. This reserve is often interpreted as coldness or arrogance. They aren't necessarily uncaring, they just don't have the same social needs as others. Better safe than sorry. Think about it. preferably 3 times. Blues are risk-averse. They double-check and triple-check everything. They trust nothing and no one, not even themselves. I knew a man who would calculate Excel formulas manually with a calculator, just in case the software made a mistake. This need for control and verification slows everything down and signals a lack of trust in those around them. The only thing I can trust is myself and my own eyes. When a blue points out errors, and they always will, it can be demoralizing. You might present a major breakthrough and the blue will point out a typo on page 3. They aren't trying to be mean, they are trying to be accurate, but to the recipient it feels like constant criticism. To earn a blue's trust, you must prove your competence with facts, not charm. Chapter 9. Learning New Things. How to Use What You've Learned. If we had endless time, there'd be no problem. It is a comforting thought to imagine a world where time is an infinite resource. In such a reality, we could afford the luxury of trial and error in every interaction. You could meet a new person, offend them with a misplaced joke, spend 3 weeks apologizing, and slowly rebuild the relationship over the next decade. If we lived for 1,000 years, perhaps we wouldn't need a system for understanding human behavior. We could simply muddle through, learning by osmosis and eventually stumbling upon the right way to treat people. But we do not live in that world. In the fast-paced reality of modern business and social interaction, first impressions are often the only impressions we get. A sales deal is won or lost in the first 5 minutes. A job interview determines your career trajectory in half an hour. A date goes sour before the appetizers arrive. We do not have the luxury of time. We need a shortcut. We need a way to quickly assess who is sitting across from us so that we can speak their language before it is too late. This book provides that shortcut. However, reading about the 4 colors is one thing. Applying this knowledge in the heat of the moment is quite another. It is easy to sit in the comfort of your armchair, nod along with the descriptions and think, yes, that's exactly like my boss. It is far more difficult to remember to adapt your behavior when that same boss is shouting at you about a missed deadline. A new approach. To truly master this skill, you must treat it not as an academic exercise, but as a practical toolkit. You must be willing to experiment. You have to be brave enough to try a new approach with the people you find most difficult. If you are a red, this means consciously slowing down when talking to a green. It means biting your tongue when you want to interrupt a blue. It means smiling and listening to a yellow's story about their cat, even if you don't care about the cat. If you are a green, it means speaking up faster than you are comfortable with when a red asks a question. It means telling a yellow no firmly rather than vaguely hinting at it. This will feel unnatural at first. It will feel like you are acting, and in a sense, you are, but you are not acting to deceive. You are acting to connect. You are moderating your natural impulses to create a bridge to the other person. If you persist, this acting will eventually become a natural part of your repertoire. You will become bilingual in behavior. A language like any other language. Think of this system as learning a foreign language. If you move to France, you can insist on speaking English and getting angry when the locals don't understand you. You might survive, but you will likely be lonely and frustrated. Alternatively, you can attempt to learn French. At first, you will be clumsy. You will mispronounce words. You will use the wrong verb tenses. You will feel foolish. But if you keep trying, eventually you will be understood. And the moment you speak to someone in their own tongue, their face lights up. The barrier comes down. Behavior is no different. We all have a native language, our core personality, but we can learn to speak the languages of red, yellow, green, and blue. You do not need to be fluent to make a difference. Even a few words of green spoken to a green colleague, asking about their weekend, showing genuine concern, can transform a relationship. Even a little bit of red, being direct and brief, can earn you the respect of a red manager. The goal is not to change who you are, but to expand your vocabulary so that you can communicate with anyone, anywhere. Chapter 10. Body language. Why? How you move matters. How do you really look? Communication is far more than the words that leave your lips. In fact, words are often the least important part of the equation. We have all heard the statistics suggesting that a vast majority of communication is non-verbal. Whether the exact percentage is 55%, 70%, or 90% is a debate for academics. For us, the practical reality is undeniable. How you say something often trumps what you say. If I scream, "I love you," while smashing my fist on the table, you will likely not feel very loved. The body contradicts the words, and the body always wins. We are biological creatures, wired to read physical signals long before we developed language. We trust what we see more than what we hear. Therefore, to truly understand the people around you, and to ensure they understand you, you must become a student of body language. Introduction. Each of the 4 behavioral types moves through the world in a distinct way. Their internal wiring manifests in their posture, their gaze, their handshake, and their use of personal space. Once you learn to spot these physical cues, you can often identify a person's color before they have spoken a single word. This gives you a tremendous advantage. You can adjust your approach before the interaction even begins. Posture. Let us observe how people stand and sit. The red individual tends to lean forward. They are on the balls of their feet, ready to charge. Even when sitting, they often perch on the edge of the chair, projecting an air of urgency. They occupy space with authority. The yellow is also forward-leaning, but in a more relaxed, casual manner. Their posture is open and inviting. They might slouch comfortably or lean in close to share a confidence. The green, conversely, leans back. Their posture is relaxed, sometimes to the point of appearing lethargic. They do not threaten, they recede. They sit comfortably, often leaning away from the table, signaling a lack of aggression. The blue also tends to keep their distance, but their posture is rigid. They sit straight, often with arms crossed or hands neatly folded. They are closed off, protecting their personal domain. Gaze. The eyes are the windows to the temperament. A red has a gaze that can feel like a physical impact. They look you dead in the eye, unblinking, assessing you. It is a direct, often piercing stare that demands attention. If you look away, they might perceive it as weakness. The yellow also makes eye contact, but it is warmer, dancing with curiosity and friendliness. They look at you because they are interested in you. However, their gaze can easily drift if something else catches their attention. The green prefers indirect eye contact. They will look at you, but they will not lock eyes in a challenge. Their gaze is soft, friendly, and wavering. They often look down or to the side to avoid the intensity of a direct stare. The blue often avoids eye contact altogether, especially in the early stages of an interaction. They might look at their papers, their computer screen, or a point on the wall. When they do look at you, it is a critical, evaluating gaze, like a scientist examining a specimen under a microscope. Head and face watch the face. The red face is often set in a determined expression. They do not smile unless there is a reason to. Their nodding is sharp and purposeful. Yes, I understand. Move on. The yellow face is a theater of emotion. They smile constantly, often with their whole face. Their eyebrows move. Their mouth is expressive. They nod enthusiastically, encouraging you to keep talking. The green face is pleasant, but neutral. They offer a gentle, supportive smile, the kind that says, "I'm with you." They nod slowly, rhythmically, signaling that they are listening and that you are safe. The blue face can be like a mask. They possess the classic poker face. It is often impossible to read what they are thinking. They do not smile to be polite. If a blue smiles, it is because something is actually funny. Their nodding is minimal, if it happens at all. Hands. What are their hands doing? The red uses decisive, chopping gestures. They point. They slam the table for emphasis. Their handshake is firm, sometimes crushing, a power play. The yellow talks with their hands. Their gestures are sweeping, open, and frequent. They might touch your arm or shoulder to establish a connection. Their handshake is enthusiastic, often accompanied by a pat on the back or a half hug. The green keeps their hands relatively still. They do not gesture wildly. Their handshake is loose, sometimes described as wet fish. Not because they are weak, but because they do not want to impose. They are gentle. The blue keeps their hands under control. They might hold a pen or touch their chin in thought. They do not use large gestures, as that would be undignified. Their handshake is brief, precise, and distant. Territory. Finally, consider personal space. Reds and yellows are comfortable invading your territory. A red might stand too close to intimidate. A yellow might stand too close to bond. They reduce the distance. Greens and blues require more space. A green needs a comfortable buffer zone to feel safe. A blue needs a clearly defined border. If you step into a blue's personal space, you will see them physically recoil. They protect their bubble fiercely. So what do we do about all this? Recognizing these signals is the first step. The second is adaptation. If you approach a blue with the booming voice, back-slapping enthusiasm, and close proximity of a yellow, you will terrify them. They will shut down. Conversely, if you approach a red with the hesitant, indirect, low-energy body language of a green, they will eat you alive. They will dismiss you as weak and incompetent. To communicate effectively, you must mirror the body language of the person you are meeting. Stand how they stand. Match their intensity. Respect their space. Red body language distance. Keep it close if you want to challenge. Back off slightly if you want to show respect, but never cower. Handshake. Firm. Look them in the eye. Do not hold on too long. Gestures. Use direct, confident movements. Avoid fidgeting. Voice. Speak clearly, loudly, and quickly. Get to the point. Focus. Maintain strong eye contact. Do not look at the floor. Yellow body language distance. Get close. Physical touch, a hand on the shoulder, is often welcome. Handshake, friendly, lingering. Be prepared for a hug. Gestures, be expressive. Smile, laugh, mirror their energy. Voice, enthusiastic, varied in tone. Sound, excited. Focus. Look at them. Smile with your eyes. Show you are enjoying their company. Green body language distance. Give them space. Do not crowd them. Handshake. Gentle. Do not crush their hand. 2 or 3 pumps is enough. Gestures, relaxed. Small movements, open palms. Voice, soft, low, slower pace. Sound warm and inviting. Focus, friendly eye contact, but break it occasionally so they don't feel interrogated. Lean back, blue body language. Distance, respect the buffer zone, do not touch them. Handshake, professional, brief. Keep your distance. Gestures, minimal. Keep your hands still or on your papers. Voice, quiet, monotonic, precise. Do not shout. Focus. Direct but not aggressive. Look at the data or the presentation as much as the person. Keep your face controlled. By mastering the silent language of the body, you gain a direct line to the subconscious mind of your listener. You signal, without saying a word, I am like you. You can trust me. And in the world of communication, trust is everything. Chapter 11. A real-life example. The company party. How to understand everyone you meet. Many years ago, during my tenure in the banking sector, I stumbled upon a fascinating case study in human behavior. While the work itself could occasionally drift into the mundane, the gallery of characters I encountered behind the scenes provided endless entertainment and insight. One branch, in particular, stood out. It was staffed by a collection of individuals who were such perfect stereotypes of their respective colors that they could have been cast in a play about the disc system. We had the distinct blue, the obvious greens, the exuberant yellows, and naturally, a red manager steering the ship. There was a specific spring when the workload had been crushing. Illness had thinned our ranks, and customer demands were relentless. The atmosphere in the office was thick with fatigue and irritation. We were a collective of grumpy faces desperately in need of a lift. The first to crack under the pressure, or rather the first to demand a remedy, was one of our yellow financial advisors. She marched into the break room one day and declared that she had had enough of our sullen expressions. We needed a goal, something bright on the horizon to pull us through the gloom. Her solution? A company party. With infectious enthusiasm, she painted a picture of a weekend getaway at a nearby conference center. She described the spa, the gym, the trendy restaurant, and the luxurious hotel rooms. She claimed to know the owner through a convoluted chain of acquaintances and promised a bargain rate. While some of us stared at her, skeptical of her connections, she steamrolled ahead, listing the activities, games, friendly competitions, bubble baths, and a monster party to cap it all off. A lively discussion erupted. The Red Bank director, sensing the shift in mood, looked up. He saw that his exhausted staff were finally smiling. Being red, he didn't need to deliberate. He saw a problem. low morale, and a solution, party. In less than 5 minutes, he made an executive decision. "We're doing it," he declared, promising to foot the bill. He turned to the yellow advisor and asked if she could organize it, make the calls, book the venue. True to her nature, she launched into a long, rambling speech, a smokescreen to hide the fact that she felt her contribution was complete, simply by having the idea. The red boss cut her off with a wave of his hand. He then turned to a group of greens sitting in their usual corner of the sofa. He didn't even need to look at them to know they were there. He barked out a request for help. They agreed immediately, likely without fully processing what they were signing up for. Task complete, the red boss left the room. He had made the decision. The execution was someone else's problem. Chaos ensued. The reds and yellows in the room began shouting over one another in excitement. The yellow advisor, ignoring the fact that the decision was already made, continued to sell the idea, her visions escalating from a nice dinner to a black tie ball, and finally to a toga party. In the midst of this cacophony, one person sat in stoic silence. Our blue credit manager. He looked deeply concerned. When the noise finally subsided enough for him to be heard, he asked the one question no one else had considered. But how are we supposed to get there? He had latched onto the single logistical detail he had heard, that the venue was 20 miles away, and his mind was now constructing a wall of obstacles. Cars? Taxis? A chartered bus? The yellow advisor turned on him instantly. How could he be so negative? She had just saved the team with a brilliant idea, and here he was ruining it with boring questions. He didn't have a solution. He just knew the plan was flawed. The Greens, ever the peacemakers, stepped in. They offered to drive. 5 cars would be sufficient, and they would handle the pickups. The crisis was averted. The yellow advisor felt like a winner again. Ironically, when the day of the party arrived, the yellow advisor never showed up. She had double-booked herself, forgetting a wedding or a relative's birthday, or perhaps both. What happens at a company party? When no one is paying attention, we all know that alcohol lowers inhibitions and alters behavior. But what is truly fascinating is how it affects different personality types in distinct ways. As the evening progressed and the wine flowed, I witnessed a bizarre transformation that I can only describe as a total personality swap. Our branch had 4 salespeople dealing with private customers, all of them distinctly yellow. Normally, they were the life of the office. Jovial, loud, and constantly joking. You often got the impression they were slightly tipsy even when sober, simply due to their natural exuberance. They viewed life as one long, amusing anecdote. However, as the alcohol intake increased, a strange silence fell over 3 of them. They withdrew. The sparkle faded. I found one of them sitting alone on the steps outside, staring into his wine glass with the weight of the world on his shoulders. He was moody and philosophical, questioning the very point of existence. "Why do I work so hard?" he lamented. "No one thanks me. Maybe I should just resign." My cheerful, optimistic colleague had morphed into a brooding pessimist. Meanwhile, inside the venue, a spectacle was unfolding. The blue credit manager, the man of details, risks, and silence, was dancing on a table. He was telling dirty jokes of such caliber that I have neither heard before nor since. When I asked his colleagues what he had been drinking, they shrugged. "He always gets like this when he starts," they said. If I had met him for the first time that night, I would have sworn he was the wildest yellow in the company. The transformation was complete. The sober yellows had become depressed blues, and the intoxicated blue had become a raging yellow. But the most surreal moment involved our red director. This was a man who ruled the office with an iron fist, stern and often terrifying. I found him standing in a corner holding a glass of whiskey, surrounded by the group of green administrators. He was pleading with them, slurring slightly. He tried to explain that he wasn't actually a horrible person. He liked them. When he lost his temper at work, they shouldn't take it personally. He didn't mean to be scary. And the Greens, the conflict-averse, silent, long-suffering Greens, emboldened by alcohol and safety in numbers, they had him cornered. They were giving him a piece of their minds. They told him he was the worst boss they had ever had. They reminded him that they had been there for 20 years and would be there long after he was gone. They scolded him like a naughty schoolboy. The red boss, usually fearless, fled the scene. He was the first to leave the party, effectively chased out by his subordinates. It was an extraordinary lesson in human dynamics. Under the influence, the rigid boundaries of our personalities had dissolved and inverted. Of course, come Monday morning, order was restored. The yellows were back to telling jokes and forgetting appointments. The blue credit manager sat in his office, silent and precise, as if he had never danced on a table in his life. The red boss glowered at everyone, and the green stared at the wall, pretending nothing had happened. The hierarchy of behavior had returned, but for one night I had seen the hidden potential and the hidden frustrations of everyone I worked with. Chapter 12. Adaptation. How to handle idiots, i.e., everyone who isn't like you. You already do this, even if you don't think you do. We have now arrived at the crux of the matter, how to handle people who are not like you. A man once said with a hint of irony that the test of intelligence is simple. If you agree with me, you are intelligent. If you do not, you are undoubtedly an idiot. While said in jest, this sentiment captures a common frustration. We often wonder why others simply do not understand what seems so obvious to us. The question then arises, can we and should we adapt our behavior to suit others? Is it possible to be a chameleon, changing colors to fit the situation? The truth is, we already do this. Adaptation is a fundamental part of social interaction. You behave differently with your boss than you do with your parents, and differently again with your children compared to your drinking buddies. It is a natural part of the social game. The system proposed here simply offers a way to do this consciously and effectively, rather than relying on guesswork. An example from real life. I once encountered a successful entrepreneur named Adam at a training conference. Adam was a textbook yellow, visionary, energetic, and completely unreflective about his own behavior. As the workshop progressed, Adam became increasingly withdrawn and agitated. Finally, he exploded. He felt that categorizing people into a grid system was wrong, and that adapting one's behavior was manipulative and dishonest. Adam's concern was genuine. He believed that if everyone adapted, no one would be their authentic self. He saw it as a deception. While his point had merit, the reality is that we always have a choice. We can choose to adapt to smooth the path of communication, or we can choose to express our core behavior, regardless of the consequences. The more you understand about how others function, the more informed that choice becomes. How often do we follow a system without knowing if it works? No system is perfect, and there are always exceptions. However, understanding these profiles gives us a significant advantage. The following sections are divided into two parts for each color. First, what that person expects from you to establish a meaningful connection. And second, how to get them to take your side or improve their performance. Adapting to red behavior. What a red expects of you, do what I asked of you as quickly as possible. In the red world, everything takes too long. They are driven by impatience and a need for immediate results. If you want to sync with a red, you must speed up, speak faster, act faster, and conclude your meetings in half the allotted time. If you are driving a car with a red passenger, stepping on the gas a little might actually make them relax. Do you want something? Speak up. Reds detest waffle. If you have a point, get to it immediately. Do not provide a long background story or a history of the problem. Start with the conclusion. If you are presenting a financial report, read the bottom line first. If they want the details, they will ask. We're not here to be pals. Do not try to build a relationship with a red by asking about their weekend or their family, especially if you do not know them well. They are there to do business, not to socialize. Small talk is seen as an inefficient waste of time. Skip the pleasantries and ask for the deal. Once a red trusts your competence, they may initiate a personal conversation, but let them lead that dance. You don't actually know? Then why am I wasting my time with you? Reds respect strength and decisiveness. Phrases like "it depends" or "I'm not sure" drive them mad. Have an opinion and state it clearly. Even if you are wrong, a red will respect you more for having a firm stance than for being wishy-washy. Stand your ground. If you back down, you lose their respect. And once that is gone, they will walk all over you. You can sleep when you're dead. Show that you work hard. Reds respect diligence and effort. You don't need to brag about every hour of overtime, but make sure they know you are pushing as hard as they are. How to behave when you meet a red. Details. Boring. Reds are often careless with details because they find them tedious. To help them demonstrate how attending to specific details will increase speed or profit. Appeal to their goals. Quick, but often frightfully wrong. Reds rush and often leave their team behind. Force them to pause by explaining that they will reach their goal faster if the whole team understands the plan. Use logic. If we run too fast, we lose people, and that slows us down. Risky business. Reds are not afraid of risks. They often don't even see them. Act as their brake by presenting facts about historical failures or potential pitfalls. Make them calculate the risk before leaping. Conflict management. If a red screams at you, do not scream back, but do not retreat. Tell them clearly that you will not tolerate being spoken to that way. If they continue, leave the room. Never let them win just because they are loud. Adapting to yellow behavior. What a yellow expects of you. Isn't it nice being here all together? Yellows thrive in a warm, friendly atmosphere. They are sensitive to mood. To reach them, smile, laugh at their jokes, and create a cozy environment. If you are grumpy or aggressive, they will shut down. I asked someone to fix that tiny detail. I can't remember who, though. Do not bore a yellow with details. They are big picture people. If you bring up spreadsheets or instruction manuals, their eyes will glaze over. Focus on the vision and the excitement of the future. Follow your gut. It works every time. Yellows make decisions based on feeling. Even if you have all the facts, ask them, how does this feel? They will appreciate that you speak their language. Mirror their enthusiasm and trust in intuition. This car is a prototype. Perfect. New is synonymous with good for a yellow. They are early adopters who love the latest gadgets and trends. If you want to sell them something, emphasize that it is unique, new, and cutting edge. Flattery also works wonders. Show genuine interest in them as a person. How to behave when you meet a yellow time optimism. Yellows are perpetually late. If you have a flight to catch, tell them the departure time is an hour earlier than it actually is. Be clear that their lateness hurts your friendship. Chaos control. Yellows are often disorganized. Help them by providing structure. Summarize meetings in writing, as they will likely forget what was agreed upon. All talk, no walk. Yellows are great at starting things, but terrible at finishing them. You may need to act as a gentle taskmaster. Push them to finish by appealing to their ego. Imagine how much everyone will love you when this project is done. Handling criticism. Yellows take criticism personally and may feel that you dislike them. When giving negative feedback, sandwich it between layers of praise. Reassure them that you like them as a person, but that specific behavior needs to change. Be persistent, as they have a selective memory for unpleasant things. Adapting to green behavior. What a green expects of you. Everything should feel good all the time. Security is paramount for a green. They fear conflict and change. To adapt, you must offer stability. Slow down. Do not rush them into decisions. Give them time to think and process. I'm not sure Greens are often passive and indecisive. You may need to take command. If you ask a group of greens to solve a problem without direction, nothing will happen. Take the helm, but do it gently. Lead them with a steady hand. It was better before. Change is the enemy. If you need to introduce change, explain the process in detail and give them ample time to get used to the idea. Validate their feelings of hesitation. How to behave. When you meet a green, criticism hurts. Greens take criticism very hard. They may crumble or become passive-aggressive. Deliver feedback softly and in private. Assure them that the relationship is safe. Facing conflict. Greens will sweep problems under the rug to maintain harmony. You must be the one to lift the lid on the rotting pile of trash on the dinner table. Force the issue out into the open, but do it with kindness. Getting commitment. Because Greens dislike saying no, they often say yes without meaning it. Ensure you have a genuine commitment by asking open-ended questions and verifying that they truly agree with the plan. Adapting to blue behavior. What a blue expects of you. It's best to think everything all the way through. Blues prepare meticulously. If you meet a blue, you must be equally prepared. Do your homework. Have the data ready. He's thought of everything, so you should too. No excuses are accepted in the blue world. If you are late or if you don't know an answer, admit it. Do not try to bluff a blue. They will see through it immediately and lose respect for you. I don't know, but I will find out is the only acceptable answer if you lack information. We're not here to hang out and be cozy. Like Reds, blues are task-oriented. Keep your distance physically and emotionally. Do not slap them on the back or invade their personal space. Stick to the facts and the task at hand. How to behave when you meet a blue speeding up. Blues can get stuck in analysis paralysis. You may need to help them move to the decision phase by setting clear deadlines and reassuring them that good enough is acceptable for this specific task. Handling criticism. Blues are critical by nature and may hurt others' feelings without realizing it. Remind them that not everyone functions like a machine and that morale is a factor in success. Details, details. When a blue starts drowning in details, gently steer them back to the main goal. Acknowledge the accuracy of their data, but ask how it impacts the big picture. In conclusion, the secret to successful interaction is simple in theory, but requires practice in reality. Meet a red with red behavior, a yellow with yellow, a green with green, and a blue with blue. By tuning into their frequency, you create a channel for communication. It is about meeting each other in the middle. We are all different, but by understanding these differences, we can navigate the complexities of human interaction and perhaps, just perhaps, find that we are not surrounded by idiots after all. Chapter 13. How to Deliver Really Bad News, the Challenge of Speaking Your Mind. Introduction. Nobody wakes up in the morning hoping to be the bearer of bad news. It is a task we instinctively shy away from. Yet life and business are not always sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes the difficult words must be spoken. When it comes to delivering these harsh truths, Reds are often the champions of efficiency, though perhaps not of tact. A Red might fire you and ask if you want milk in your coffee in the same breath. To them, it is simply a task to be completed. But for the rest of us, and especially for the recipient, the delivery matters. There is a distinction to be made between catastrophic news, like a death or a firing, and the kind of personal criticism necessary for growth. The former will always be painful. The latter can be managed. Feedback is a massive, often anxiety-inducing topic. Ideally, we would all be adept at giving and receiving it, yet many executives would rather walk over hot coals than tell an employee they are underperforming. The result is often silence, where problems fester because no one dares to pop the blister. The downside of just doing your job. To understand the complexity of feedback, consider Mika. Mika was a colleague of mine some years ago, a man who was exceptional at his job. He hit every budget, won every sales contest, and was adored by clients who frequently sent him gifts. Naturally, as his boss, I wanted to honor him. I decided to throw a surprise celebration. I gathered the entire team of 27 people. I called Mika to the front, praised his brilliance, and handed him a reward. $50 and movie tickets for him and his wife, with a babysitter already arranged. The team cheered. It was a perfect moment, or so I thought. Afterward, Mika pulled me aside, furious. He gave me one of the worst dressing downs of my career. "How could you do that to me?" he hissed, parading me out in front of everyone. He was mortified. He felt he was simply doing his job and saw no reason for the spotlight. Mika was green. To him, being singled out, even for praise, was a nightmare. He didn't speak to me for a week. Feedback immunity. If positive feedback can backfire so spectacularly, imagine the minefield of negative criticism. Many leaders rely on the sandwich method, hiding the criticism between two layers of praise. "You're a great guy, but you're losing us money, but we really like your tie." This is a disaster. The message gets lost in the padding. To be effective, you must strip away the immunity each color has built up against criticism. You must tailor your approach so the message actually lands. How to give feedback to a Red don't gift. Rapid. Reds value efficiency. If you try to soften the blow with small talk or compliments, they will either tune you out or wonder why you are wasting their time. Be blunt. Your performance is hurting the team. They can take it. Stick to facts. I once had to critique a red sales director whom his team described as a boorish, insensitive, manipulative tyrant. When I told him this, he dismissed it as their incompetence. I had to go through every specific example, step by step. He argued, screamed, and threatened to fire me. Don't play along with the anger. When a red explodes, and they will, do not scream back. If you do, it becomes a power struggle, and they will fight to win at all costs. Sit back. Let the storm rage. When they run out of steam, calmly continue to the next point. Ask them to repeat. Reds are quick to dismiss what they don't like. Make them repeat what you have agreed upon. They will hate it, but it forces them to acknowledge the reality of the situation. How to give feedback to a yellow. Make an agenda. Yellows are slippery. If you try to have a serious chat, they will derail it with a funny story about their vacation. Prepare concrete examples and write them down. Ears not connected to brain. I once told my friend Janne, a yellow who dominated every conversation, that he talked too much. His response? I understand. I repeat myself too often. I should tell new stories. He completely missed the point. You must be painfully specific. You speak for 50% of the time. You need to stop. Don't dislike him. Yellows take criticism as a personal rejection. If you critique their work, they hear, I hate you. You must reassure them that you like them as a person, but their behavior is the issue. Massage their ego. The martyr complex. Be prepared for them to sulk. Nobody likes me. They will moan, I was just trying to be fun. Do not back down. Follow up. Yellows have short memories for unpleasant things. They will agree to change and forget it by lunchtime. You must follow up constantly. How to give feedback to a green, be gentle. Criticizing a green is like kicking a puppy. They have thin skins and weak egos. If you're too harsh, they will shut down completely and function even worse than before. Use feelings. Unlike with reds, it works to say, when you do this, it makes me feel sad or disappointed. Greens are relational. They don't want to hurt you. Don't backpedal. When they look crushed, your instinct will be to say, it's not that bad. Don't. If you do, they will assume the problem is solved. You must hold the line gently but firmly. So stupid. Expect them to prostrate themselves. I'm an idiot, I'll never do it again. Do not let them wallow. Focus on the specific behavior, not their character. Follow up. Greens often solve problems by doing nothing and hoping they go away. You must ensure they actually take action. How to give feedback to a blue know what you're talking about. If you are going to critique a blue, you better have your facts straight. If you say, you work too slow, they will ask, compared to whom? Based on what data? Written examples. Provide specific, detailed examples in writing. This project took 16.5 hours longer than budgeted, costing us exactly $4,125. This is language they understand. Stick to facts. Do not get personal. Do not use the sandwich method. They will see through the false praise immediately and distrust you. Prepare for counter questions. They will drill down to the molecular level. Who said that? Where is the documentation? If you can't answer, you lose. Follow up. Ask them to repeat the agreement. They might intellectually understand you but still believe you are wrong because you prioritized speed over quality. You must ensure they are on board. Chapter 14. Who gets along and why it works. Group dynamics at their finest. Introduction. If you want a group to function effectively, diversity is not just a buzzword. It is a survival mechanism. A team composed entirely of one color is a recipe for disaster. A group of reds will kill each other in a power struggle. A group of yellows will have a great party but accomplish nothing. A group of greens will have a very cozy time doing absolutely nothing. A group of blues will plan the perfect project but never start it. The magic happens in the mix. Natural combinations. Some colors naturally find it easier to get along because they share a fundamental tempo or focus. Blue and green. Both are introverts. They prefer a slower pace and value security. They can sit together in silence without it being awkward. They understand the need for thought and caution. Red and yellow. Both are extroverts. They move fast, talk loud, and want action. They share a high energy that can be infectious. Complementary combinations. These pairings work because they share a focus, even if their energy is different. Red and blue, both are task-oriented. They are not there to make friends, they are there to work. The red drives the speed, the blue ensures the quality. They can respect each other's competence. Yellow and green, both are relationship-oriented. They care about people. The yellow talks, and the green listens. A match made in heaven. Challenging combinations. Here is where the friction and the potential for growth lies. Red and green. This is a clash of speed and conflict style. The red wants it done now and doesn't mind screaming to get it. The green wants to take it easy and hates conflict. The red sees the green as lazy and slow. The green sees the red as an aggressive monster. Yellow and blue. This is often the most difficult pairing. The yellow wants to talk, dream, and disregard details. The blue wants to be silent, analyze, and focus on details. The blue thinks the yellow is a superficial windbag. The yellow thinks the blue is a boring joy kill. Genuine problems. When you put a yellow and a blue together to solve a problem without self-awareness, you get chaos. The yellow dives in without reading the instructions, eager to brainstorm. The blue sits silently, reading the manual from cover to cover. The yellow talks incessantly to fill the silence. The blue seethes with irritation at the noise. They are operating on different planets. Go green. If you are ever in a situation where you cannot read the other person or the group dynamic is confusing, there is a simple default strategy. Go green. Shut up. Listen. Be friendly. Care about the other person. You can never go wrong by listening more than you talk. It is the universal adapter of human behavior. Chapter 15. Written communication. How to evaluate someone when you can't meet in person. We live in an era where a significant portion of our communication happens without us ever seeing the other person's face. Emails, text messages, and chat logs have replaced the handshake and the coffee break conversation. This presents a unique challenge. When you meet someone face to face, you have a wealth of data to analyze. Body language, tone of voice, facial expressions. In an email, you are left with cold, hard text. However, just as people reveal their colors in how they walk and talk, they also reveal them in how they write. By paying close attention to the structure, tone, and content of a written message, you can often deduce the sender's profile and adapt your reply accordingly. How to spot a red writer. You open your inbox and find an email with no subject line, or perhaps just meeting. The body of the email is brief, bordering on terse. It might look something like this. Meeting tomorrow at 11. Be punctual. Okay. Your immediate reaction might be offense. Why is he screaming? Is he angry? The use of capital letters and the imperative tone feels like a slap in the face. But for a red, this is simply efficiency. He isn't angry. He just wants to emphasize that the time is important. He saved time by not writing, "Dear Christina, I hope you are having a lovely day." To him, those are wasted keystrokes. How to reply? Do not write a novel. Do not ask about his weekend. Reply instantly and briefly, "Okay," or "received." That is all he needs. How to spot a yellow writer. A yellow email is a completely different experience. The subject line might be "hello" or "fun stuff." The text will be a stream of consciousness, likely lacking paragraphs or clear structure. "Hiya, hope everything is super. Listen, about that project, I had a crazy idea. Can we grab a coffee? Maybe a cinnamon bun too? It's going to be great. Cheers." You will notice an abundance of exclamation marks, emojis, and open-ended suggestions. The yellow writer wants to convey enthusiasm and build a relationship, even through a screen. The actual details of the meeting, where, when, what project, are often missing. How to reply. Match the warmth. Be friendly. Use an exclamation mark or two. If you need details, ask for them gently, but wrap your request in enthusiasm. Sounds great! I love cinnamon buns. Is Tuesday at 10 okay? How to spot a green writer. Green emails are pleasant, polite, and often a bit longer than necessary because they don't want to be abrupt. They will almost always start with a relational check-in. "Hi. I hope you and the family are doing well. I was just wondering if you have had time to look at the report. No rush, just checking in. Let me know when it suits you." The green writer is driven by a fear of imposing or causing conflict. They use softeners like "maybe" if you have time and just wondering. They want to ensure you don't feel pressured. How to reply? Be kind. Acknowledge the personal opening. "The family is great, thanks." Reassure them that they are not bothering you. Give them a clear, low-pressure answer. How to spot a blue writer, and then there is the blue email. You will know it immediately because it usually contains attachments. Subject: preparation for strategy. Meeting: Dear Christina, attached, please find the agenda, the background analysis, and the budget report. Please familiarize yourself with these documents before our meeting tomorrow at 09 UZU, so we can proceed efficiently. Regards, Christian. The email is factual, structured, and devoid of emotion. It focuses entirely on the task and the data. The blue writer assumes you will read every word of the attachments because that is what they would do. How to reply: confirm receipt. Do not try to be funny or overly personal. If you have questions, ensure they are well-founded. Show that you have done your homework. Chapter 16. What makes us as mad as hell? Temperament can reveal everything about a person. We all get angry. It is a universal human emotion. But how we get angry and how long we stay angry differs radically depending on our personality. If you want to understand someone's true nature, watch them when things go wrong. The red temperament. The shot glass. Imagine a shot glass. It is small, fills up quickly, and empties just as fast. This is the red temperament. A red can go from calm to furious in a nanosecond. It could be a traffic jam, a slow internet connection, or a colleague who doesn't get to the point. They explode. They might yell, slam a door, or deliver a harsh rebuke. But here is the secret. Once they explode, it is over. They have emptied the glass. 5 minutes later, they are back to normal, completely forgetting that they just terrified the entire office. They do not hold grudges because they have released the pressure. To a red, screaming is just another way of communicating. The yellow temperament. The carbonated soda. Yellows are generally cheerful, but they have a temper too. Imagine a bottle of soda that has been shaken vigorously. When you unscrew the cap, it explodes, spraying sticky liquid over everyone in the vicinity. A yellow's anger is dramatic. They scream, they cry, they make a scene. I'm very upset. Do you even hear what I'm saying? Because they are governed by emotion, their anger is all-consuming in the moment. However, like the red, it usually passes relatively quickly. But unlike the red, who moves on to work, the yellow might need some time to be comforted and regain their social equilibrium. The green temperament. The pressure. Cooker. Greens hate conflict. They will do anything to avoid a scene. So what do they do with their anger? They swallow it. They shove it down into a mental pressure cooker and clamp the lid tight. They might be furious, but you will rarely see it. They will say, "It's fine," while seething inside. The danger here is that the pressure has to go somewhere. Often, it manifests as silent resentment, passive-aggressive behavior, or eventually physical illness. Greens are the most likely to suffer from burnout because they carry the weight of unresolved anger for years. If a green does finally explode, take cover. It is a nuclear detonation of 10 years' worth of suppressed rage. The blue temperament, the leaky barrel. Blues rarely explode. They consider losing one's temper to be undignified and irrational. Instead, imagine a large barrel of water with a small, leaky tap at the bottom. Drip, drip, drip. A blue releases their frustration through constant low-level complaining. Typical. Someone forgot to refill the printer paper again. No structure in this place. They nag, they mutter, they write stern notes. By constantly venting these small frustrations, they prevent the barrel from ever getting full enough to burst. It can be exhausting to be around, but it keeps them sane. Chapter 17. Stress Factors and Energy Thieves. What is stress? Stress is not just about having too much to do. It is about the gap between expectations and reality, and that gap looks different for every color. What motivates a red might paralyze a green. To maintain a healthy environment for yourself and others, you must identify these specific triggers. Stress factors for reds thrive on control and results. Take those away and you wreck them. Loss of control. If you micromanage a red or remove their authority, they feel caged. No results. If a project is dragging on with no visible progress, a red feels physically ill. If we aren't moving forward, we are dying. Routine. If you force a red to do repetitive, mundane administrative tasks, they will climb the walls. Stupidity. Watching others make avoidable mistakes drives them insane. Reaction to stress. They blame everyone else. They become even more aggressive, demanding, and hard-working. They shut down communication and try to brute force their way through the problem. Stress factors for yellows. Yellows need visibility and social connection. Invisibility. If a yellow is ignored or kept out of the loop, they wither. Skepticism. Being surrounded by wet blankets who constantly question their ideas drains their energy. Isolation. Working alone in a quiet room is a form of torture for a yellow. Public humiliation. Criticizing a yellow in front of others destroys them. Reaction to stress. They seek more attention. They talk louder, faster, and more incessantly. They come up with increasingly unrealistic ideas to try and win back validation. Stress factors for greens. Greens need security and predictability. Uncertainty, unexpected changes, sudden counterorders, or unclear instructions paralyze them. Conflict. Being in the middle of an argument or having to deal with an angry person is their nightmare. The spotlight. Dragging a green onto a stage or forcing them to speak in a large meeting causes immense anxiety. Reaction to stress. They withdraw. They become completely passive, refusing to make any decisions. They hide in their shell and wait for the storm to pass. Stress factors for blues need accuracy and structure. Risks. Being forced to make decisions without sufficient data is terrifying. Spontaneity. Let's just wing it is a phrase that causes a blue actual pain. Surprises are not fun. They are errors in planning. Emotionalism. Having to deal with hysterical people or touchy-feely sessions drains them. Reaction to stress. They hit the brakes. They become excessively pessimistic and pedantic. They will check the details 10 times instead of 3, slowing everything down to a crawl to ensure no mistakes are made. Chapter 18. A short reflection through history. People have always been like this. The background to everything you've read so far. It is easy to believe that the categorization of human behavior is a modern invention, a product of our obsession with labeling and sorting. But the truth is, we have been trying to understand one another for as long as we have been human. When we left the caves and began to form complex societies, we quickly realized that we were not all the same. This realization sparked a quest for understanding that spans millennia and cultures. The Greeks travel back in time to ancient Greece, 4 centuries before Christ. Here we meet Hippocrates, the father of medicine. Unlike his contemporaries, who looked to the gods for explanations of illness, Hippocrates looked to nature. He developed the theory of humoral pathology, believing that our health and our temperament were controlled by 4 bodily fluids. He identified 4 distinct temperaments, each ruled by a specific fluid. Choleric, ruled by yellow bile. These individuals were fiery, temperamental, and hot-blooded, the ancestors of our reds. Sanguine, ruled by blood. These were the optimists, the creative and happy-go-lucky souls who spread positive vibes, the forefathers of our yellows. Phlegmatic, ruled by phlegm. These were the calm, slow, and steady individuals, the early greens. Melancholic, ruled by black bile. These were the thinkers, the ponderers, often prone to gloom, but deeply analytical, the original blues. The Aztecs across the ocean and centuries later, the Aztecs developed a surprisingly similar system based on the elements. They believed people were born under specific signs that dictated their behavior. Fire people, impulsive, aggressive, and energetic, red. Air people, spontaneous, lively, and breezy, yellow. Earth people, stable, calm and reliable, green. Water people, deep, quiet and observant, blue. William Moulton Marston. In the modern era, the baton was passed to William Moulton Marston, an American psychologist and, interestingly, the creator of Wonder Woman. In the 1920s, he developed a theory to explain the behavior of normal people. He identified 4 primary emotions that drive behavior: dominance, inducement, submission, later stability, and compliance. later analytic ability. Marston noticed that people are either active or passive in their reaction to their environment. Dominance, red, acts on the environment to change it. Inducement, yellow, interacts with the environment to persuade it. Stability, green, submits to the environment to maintain harmony. Compliance, blue, analyzes the environment to ensure accuracy, while the terminology has evolved and colors have been added to make it accessible. Cheerson. Core. Truth remains unchanged. We are different, but we are predictably different. Chapter 19. Voices from Real Life. To truly understand how this system plays out in the real world, I interviewed 4 individuals, each representing a distinct behavior profile. Their insights reveal not just how they see themselves, but the often hidden friction they experience with the rest of us. Helena, red. Helena is a CEO, a quintessential red. For her, the book was a revelation, mostly because she finally understood why her staff seemed afraid of her. I no longer have to beat around the bush, she told me. Now my staff knows I'm not an evil despot, I'm just red. I'm not angry, just determined. Helena admitted she had never understood blues before. She simply thought they were slow. Now she realizes they care about the process. However, she still has 0 patience for yellows, all that babble, and was shocked to learn that greens talk behind her back. I don't know how many times I've said that we have to just be honest, she lamented. She couldn't grasp that her honesty felt like aggression to others. To her, admitting a mistake is efficient. To others, it's terrifying. The Yellow Voice. I spoke with a man who embodied the yellow spirit, charming, talkative, and convinced of his own brilliance. He disagreed with the book's claim that yellows make ill-considered decisions. I'm very analytically inclined, he insisted, before immediately jumping to how great he is at winning people over. His takeaway? Blues are boring. He described working with blue colleagues as a nightmare of lists and calculations where nothing actually got done. When I asked about his weaknesses, specifically about being a bad listener, he paused for a long time. Nothing comes to mind, he finally said. A perfect yellow answer. Elizabeth, green. Elizabeth, a healthcare worker, found comfort in the book. It validated her need for consensus. I want everyone to be in agreement, she said. Cooperation is important to me. She revealed the stress of working under a red boss. She described him as demanding and difficult, noting how he reprimanded a colleague for being late. To Elizabeth, the fact that he followed the rules didn't matter. It was how he did it that was unforgivable. Her greatest admission, the silent resistance. She confessed that Greens do indeed gossip and complain in small groups rather than confronting the issue, simply because they are terrified of the red boss's anger. The blue voice. Finally, I spoke to a man who, true to form, had critiqued the book's accuracy. He found yellows to be incompetent and frustrating. They pour out their life story with a total lack of discernment, he complained. They think we are all interested in their puppies or their kid's new tooth. He admitted that his need for details could be a problem at home. His red wife wants to buy a new TV in 10 minutes. He wants to research models to avoid making a bad investment. The risk of being wrong paralyzes him. His final thought? I'm going to order the Marston book. He needed to check the original source material. Of course he did. Chapter 20. A quick little quiz to see what you've learned. Note, in this chapter, the author provides a series of scenarios to test the reader's ability to identify behavior types. Rather than reproducing the quiz, we will reflect on the core challenge it presents. The true test of this knowledge is not in memorizing the colors, but in applying them to the chaotic reality of everyday life. The quiz presents situations we all recognize. The colleague who dominates the meeting, yellow. The boss who demands results yesterday, red. The friend who can't decide where to eat, green. And the neighbor who measures his lawn with a ruler, blue. If you can walk into a room, observe the body language, listen to the tone of voice, and correctly identify who is who, you have gained a superpower. You can predict how they will react. You know that you must speed up for the red, smile for the yellow, slow down for the green, and provide data for the blue. The quiz is merely a warm-up for the real exam, which takes place every single time you interact with another human being. Chapter 21. A final example from everyday life, perhaps the most enlightening team project in the history of the world, the experiment. To conclude, let me share the story of a fascinating experiment I conducted with a group of managers at a telecom company. These were successful, intelligent people. I divided 20 of them into 4 groups based on their behavior profiles: a red group, a yellow group, a green group, and a blue group. I gave them all the exact same problem to solve, a complex task requiring cooperation, and 1 hour to complete it. The red group, I visited the red room first. The noise was deafening. 3 people were standing, shouting over one another, arguing about why they were right. 2 were locked in a fierce debate. 1 man had simply disengaged, deciding to work alone because the others were idiots. He was writing furiously. When I asked if they were okay, one snapped, "Peachy, we're almost done." They finished in 30 minutes, turning the task into a race. They spent the remaining time calling colleagues to brag, but when they presented their solution, it was a disaster. They hadn't read the instructions. They had solved a completely different problem because they were too impatient to listen. They argued that their solution was better than the instructions, but they had failed the task. The yellow group, in the yellow room, the energy was electric. Everyone was smiling, talking, and laughing. 3 people were fighting for space at the whiteboard, drawing diagrams that seemed unrelated to the task. 1 manager was telling a hilarious but irrelevant anecdote. Another was checking his email. They were the last to finish. I had to fetch them twice. Their presentation was incredibly entertaining. The spokeswoman charmed the room, but it was all smoke and mirrors. They hadn't solved the problem either. They had just had a really good time discussing it. The green group. The green room was silent. A strange calm hung in the air. They were sitting quietly, listening to a colleague tell a sad story about his dog who had passed away. They were bonding, prioritizing the relationship over the task. 1 person had sketched a few tentative suggestions, but every sentence ended with a question mark. No one wanted to take the lead. When they presented, they stood together for support, whispering. They hadn't solved the problem. When I asked if they agreed on the solution, they nodded in unison, even though their crossed arms and grim faces screamed that they disagreed completely. They prioritized harmony over truth. The blue group. The blue room was dead silent. They sat motionless, reading the instructions. For minutes, no one spoke. They were thinking. Finally, they began a low-intensity, highly detailed discussion. They analyzed the grammar of the instructions. They debated the definition of specific words. When the hour was up, they hadn't even started on the solution. They were stuck in the analysis phase. They argued that they needed more time to do it properly. They had failed because they couldn't move past the details to see the big picture. Conclusions. The result? Chaos. The reds called the blues idiots. The yellows were bored to tears. The greens suffered in silence. This experiment illustrates the fundamental truth of this book. Diversity is the only path to success. A group composed solely of 1 type is destined to fail. We need the red's speed, the blue's accuracy, the yellow's creativity, and the green's stability. We need each other. When we understand this, when we stop judging others for being different and start valuing them for what they bring to the table, we realize that we are not surrounded by idiots after all. We are surrounded by potential.